You know, I just realized that what we should have done instead of this is any other Star Wars book. Oh well, not happening now. Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another Lore Ramblings. This is gonna be a wild fucking ride. The name's Adam.
I'm
And I am
Input.
your okay.
So,
And I'm your regularly scheduled tech priest, and this is I am here to educate you about the Glorantha.
Do not
and first off,
resist.
for that, hail Harshax.
Dale Harshex.
So, for people who do not know, brief summary: this is a currently now 50-year-old RPG series that's a Bronze Age fantasy.
45, actually. No, 46 years old, because the first edition of Runequest was in 78, I want to say.
Hmm.
So actually 47. Damn, I'm doing math wrong. It's been a day.
And one of the pantheons, actually the one that most people tend to play, or the most prominent ones, is the Storm God pantheon. And in the mythology of RuneQuest, they are also known as the Lightbringers because they're the ones who start the whole thing.
They're not all Lightbringers. A good way to put it is that the Lightbringers are a subsection of the Storm Pantheon, because there's specifically 7 Lightbringers, which we will cover. And those 7 are very important.
But they overall represent, I guess, the adventure. The perhaps you say the concept of the adventure or the adventure party, because
Very very specifically, Orlanth is the god of heroes. That is one of the things he is, mostly because of just what he does and what he did during the god time.
By the way, I'm back. Sorry about that. Eurmal has played a prank on me. I had to deal with that. Apologies. Let's get into the book.
So as we can see on the cover here, we have Orlanth as the red-haired, blue-skinned Viking.
He looks a lot more Hindu than you think if you've only played Dragon Pass, but that is what he actually looks like. Or at least that's one of his common depictions.
That is what I do like about it, because it's a blend of various mythologies. Because you got the Viking stuff, but then you have some of this sort of Greco mythological inspired stuff. But when you think of a blue-skinned god, you think Hindu mythology.
Well, that's accurate, because this is just Indo-European mythology in general. Like, Orlanth is the storm god. He is the summary of all of these storm gods across Indo-European mythology. This dragon slayer, monster fighter, heroic figure, king of gods, thunderer, lightning bringer, all that sort of stuff. That's all Orlanth's sort of shtick.
Essentially, when Greg Stafford was designing his setting, what he ultimately did was he took the root origins of a lot of deities. In a lot of ways, this was, if I recall correctly, I think this was actually originally started as like a college project that just went wildly out of scope.
It was a college project, if I remember correctly, that came to the idea of, like, how do you build your own mythology? And then he sort of started working on that and writing some stories in it, which then evolved into him making a board game on it called White Moon, Red Bear. Sorry, no, White Bear, Red Moon. I always mix those two up because the fucking Soviets, god damn it. But in general, he evolved the setting over time and got to the point where it sort of coalesced into what we'd call its modern depiction about I want to say like
Sandals?
80. Yeah, like about, I'd say the 80s is when it really solidifies itself. It's when he starts to fully concrete like the timeline that he does have.
It does help that he orchestrated alongside the people who founded Chaosium a book. That's kind of where it became condensed enough that you could play. And it started,
and the
I believe, in
RPG
Sartar.
boom.
I mean, that's the 78 release, which was the most, like, the first kind of look at the world as he developed it, because he ran a house campaign for it where he sort of explored more of the mythology and fleshed things out a little bit more before he released the before they like released the full rules, if I remember correctly.
But let's also then explain what else on the cover. We have here the red goddess of the Lunar Empire, and
That's
I do not know.
Nicelor.
Oh, that is Nicelor on the left.
Yes, that's Nicelor on the left. You can tell it's Nicelor on the left because the nice chaos rune, and that he's dark because the whole thing with Nicelor being the Gavaji deceiver.
That is also the thing with
One
Orlanth.
half
Not
of his
only
body.
is he the adventurer, but he is also very much a fighter of chaos.
Well, yeah, he's also kind of responsible for chaos, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we will.
He's responsible for aspects of chaos, and what this book covers is the time he accidentally the sun.
Well, it covers a lot more than that.
But that's a major component. There's a reason they're called the Lightbringer cult.
Yes, it's his most famous deed. It's the most famous thing that they did inside of the God Time.
And I think a good way to describe that is to show on page 4, which summarizes pretty much the entire myth in one image.
The general idea of Orlanth. This is Katrin Denham's art, if I remember that correctly. I probably mispronounced her name a little bit, but she does this very unique style with here.
It's very Mesoamerican inspired. Also, there's a reason this stream is rated 18+.
Because as you see, Orlanth gets the ladies while stabbing the sun. Because this is how this whole myth starts. You see, the sun's a bit of a tyrant.
We'll get
didn't
to that
like
when we get to the section on Orlanth in the book. We'll get to that. Don't get ahead of yourself here.
But then in the
you can see
in the
across
middle,
here.
yeah, he's fighting
all
a
of
dragon. These
are little
of his
snippets of
deeds.
all of his deeds.
And then finally him in the underworld with one of my favorite pictures of the sun god Yelm crying in the corner.
Crying in the corner.
I love
lost.
the solar disc depiction where instead of a head, it's just that.
Yeah, it's kind of great. But you can see all the Lightbringers with him. Right there. There's also some depictions of some of the other primary gods that are related to Orlanth. You've got Humacht and Eurmal in a corner there with the thing called Death. There's Stormbull fighting the devil. Orlanth bringing the rains. Of course, Orlanth and Aroka, probably the most famous of his deeds before the Lightbringer's quest.
I believe that's the wooing of Arnalda right there in the corner.
Probably.
Yep.
And then you have all the Lightbringers going down to the underworld, which we'll go into. Because, yeah, this is how they're all technically dead, by the way.
Right. If you go to the underworld, you're dead. It's just how it is. You are metaphysically dead. So there was a time where Orlanth was dead. Along with Eurmal, Linkor-Mai, Isseries, and Shalana Roy, which, again, we'll get to that. But the next page, we should probably roll back here and talk a little bit about the idea behind this book, which is that this was a project of Greg's before he died to start to kind of compile all this stuff together for a release, where it's the idea of let's release a big compilation of every single god in Glorantha, along with information about their their magic, their cult, the way that they view the world. Let's get that all together and let's release it in one big volume, because it's Greg. He likes to do stuff like that. Remember, the Guide to Glorantha is like 700 pages. And then they realized that to do that would probably be about 1,000 pages. So they kind of decided that instead of that, they'll release it in a 11 volume works. It was originally 12, but then they realized that they needed to add a little bit more to help flesh things out a little bit more and explain things that were in the whole cycle. This is the second book of that series. The first one is the Prosopedia, or basically the Encyclopedia of the Gods. Covers all the major figures, all of the heroes that you can think of, various depictions and incarnations of them. It's based on an in-universe thing with the God Learners.
This is
So it
also
isn't.
one of the big reasons why this genre never became as popular as its peers. Because it's kind of a fucking nightmare for DMs to be able to run.
You really don't need much information beyond the
You can
Prosopedia, or
justify it, but there's no jump off point and there's a lot of crap. You gotta be honest about that. That's a pain.
oh
And I
yeah,
will agree, you have to get into the mood of the setting. This is not your Dungeons and Dragons. It's very, I don't want to say like very complex,
I think
but
the mural shows what sort of stuff you're dealing
yeah.
with.
And there is, and while you could just ignore all of it and just say, okay, you're basically playing as like the followers of Thor, go ahead and murder the trolls and the dead. Um, if you get into the detail of it, you can have a really good time, and honestly, that seems to be the intent.
It's a very rich world. This is something that I always recommend GMs to borrow from, is you can totally at least look at how they orchestrate cults and use it as your reference guide. You don't necessarily need to go as deep as what this one will do, but it does help.
right. And
Because
this is part
as
of the reason why they
it states with mythology that the mythology of a religion is its recorded communications between the divinity and its worshippers. The mythological actions of a deity determine the appropriate actions for worshippers who partake of the deity's power. Which is the whole thing within Glorantha is if you are a worshiper of a god and you take on their myths or take on their actions or their how they are con, considered, you gain a sort of power.
this is a big part of one of the themes of Glorantha, which is this mythical cycle that you are actively taking part in. You are actively participating. By initiating into a cult like Orlance, you are recreating his deeds that were in the god time and time again. That's part of the process of initiation, is to embody your deity for even a split moment.
Like I guess like to sort of have a real world comparison, you know how there's like those worshippers in like the Philippines who try to reenact like the crucifixion?
Yes, it's like that. That would be an example of like a really intense version of like a Gloranthan worship ceremony. There is a lot, and I do mean a lot, that goes into this. It's very much like how you would worship back in the day. Like this is a Bronze Age for a reason. This is very much intense, and it's not just we believe this. No, 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 no. This is like action reaction. You can prove that the gods are there, unless you're a Melchioni, in which case you're saying that they're not really there, but it's a bit different. Melchioni are weird, and we won't cover them quite yet. Their
I
book still
wouldn't have
has to come
even
out.
brought them up because that they have
They're
nothing to
not.
do with this. There are 7
They do.
deities.
They do actually. We'll get to that once we cover Orlanth.
So the first thing I think to say is th- this. The first thing it details is how Orlanth worshippers view the world and their understanding.
Well,
So
technically, they go into details about where did the world come from, where did I come from. It goes into the
yeah.
construction of the theology, and then it goes into who are the other deities and the spread of the Lightbringers' religion. It talks about how it's spread historically, which goes into
and
which I think is really neat.
yeah. And I think the best summation of Orlanthi culture is the answer to why am I here? The only true meaning to life is the living. You must face your enemies and carve out your place in the world. Live with honor in word and deed, as that defines you to mortals and gods alike. Always love your kin and family.
And then look
Again,
at
this
Why
is
Do
a
We
pretty
Die,
yep.
which is the other big one here. Which is that because no one could die, no one could live. Humacht and Orlanth ended this sort of tyranny by bringing death. Without death, there could be no true life to enjoy, and
Wait,
nightmarish enemies would plague us forever.
wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me in a setting led by a tyrannical, yellow-colored deity that bringing death actually was important? I wonder which popular video game by a Japanese company that recently had 30 million players is this sort of similar to.
Gee, I wonder if they referenced that there is a death god and a storm god.
You'd be shocked by how far this has influence on video gaming and just gaming.
Oh
in
yeah,
general.
there's an entire Japanese series. I need to find the name of it, but it basically just entirely rips off the setting. It's amazing.
There's also
Like
Elder
there's a
Scrolls in
crescent.
general.
Elder
Elder
Scrolls is less
Scrolls.
direct.
Well,
This
It's less
was literally
direct, but a lot of the weird esoteric nature of it is due to people working on this.
yeah. No,
Elden Ring as
the thing
well.
with the other game is it's like it's like the Crimson Moon Empire, and they are hunting the runes, which include the rune of death, of vampire, of all this other stuff. So it's very blatantly it's just Glorantha. It's just Runequest. Okay.
They also describe briefly the other gods, but this is just kind of in relation to what an Orlanthi would believe.
Yes, this is the Orlanthi perspective on the other deities. Some of them are more friendly than others, like the Earth goddesses. Others, we don't like them. We really
Like
don't
Chaos.
like them. Like Chaos, like the Lunars.
Darkness gods as well.
Somewhat.
The sea gods, the sky gods are kind of iffy.
Mainly because one of the big things that Orlanth did was overthrow them to become the leader.
Which we should get to.
Yes, but the comment on the Melchioni is the humanists.
Passing over the detail on every single one of the gods in the Orlanthi pantheon.
This is not every single god. Some of these are heroes as well. But you get a couple to note that will stand out here that aren't going to be referenced in this book is Arcat, the Liberator.
Major part
Probably,
in the meta plot.
One of the more important historical figures in Glorantha.
Also may be coming back, depending on who you believe.
May have already came back, actually. There's some real speculation on that one. Other ones that won't show up in this one is Yelmalio. He gets his full write-up in the recently released Gods of Sky and Fire book. Or Fire and Sky. And then they sum up the 7 Lightbringers.
Which one of them is Fleshman?
Yes, Fleshman. The 7 Lightbringers are Orlanth, Shalana Arroy, Lankor Mai, Isseries, Eurmal, Fleshman, and Ginajar. Neither Ginajar or Fleshman are directly worshipped as such, because Fleshman is just immortal. He is literally the everyman. The identity of Fleshman, or if there was more than one Fleshman, it doesn't really matter. He went down to the underworld to try to fix things.
By the way, this is a very great... I like how they take the mural that they showed you and actually shows you the different aspects and the different deities they just kind of briefly go over.
Yes, they also have a thing about the Lightbringer summons, which is that this is like supposedly what Orlanth said.
I thought he would have just said, "Behold, the Lightbringer."
Oh, there they are! There they are! Take their coats. Take their coats. Make them uncomfortable.
Don't give him his jacket.
We're not giving his jacket back.
Yes, they have a nice little genealogy chart here.
Which is, again, I love the Mesoamerican take they do with it.
Yes, it's...
actually, it's not just Mesoamerican. I'm also seeing Sumerian.
With the genealogy section?
Well, because Inora is actually depicted more like what you would Pharaoh, or what a Sumerian or Akkadian emperor might look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, they take a lot of different stuff. And then we get some of the brilliant art in this book with the first showing of Orlanth in all of his 4-armed blue glory.
He is already tired of your shit, and he has the head of some horrible monster. Might be his brother.
That's a dragon.
Might be a Roka.
That's a Roka's head. Or it might be Sharkisios. Either way.
He killed a couple.
Yeah. The mythos and history can be summed up pretty fast, but the basics are Orlanth is the king of the gods and ruler of the universe.
Much like Zeus, he was the youngest of the brothers, because he had brothers.
He did. He's the god of heroes, leader of the Lightbringers who saved Glorantha. Orlanth is the most powerful of the gods and is willing to fight to prove it. You can argue if he's the most powerful, but he definitely is the one willing to fight. Linkor, Mai, Shalana Roy, and Eurmal all assist him. Same thing with Isseries. His kin and companions are all important as well. Stormbow, Huller, Humok, Mastikos, others.
There's a reason why in King of Dragon Pass they have a hero quest specifically called The Forming of the Tribes, which details Orlanth forming of the tribes.
Basically, him getting everybody together and fighting off the darkness.
Also, speaking
hey
of
there,
the
Donald
games,
Roche. Suikoden is based on the Heroes of the Marsh, a 14th century Chinese story.
Yes, it is. But it also includes a ton. Look, the story beats are, but hold on, Suikoden.
Listen, when you're having the great general of the Scarlet Moon Empire,
questing for the true runes
of life and death.
Like, I think the thing I remember about Suikoden were the intentionally unwinnable battles, and those were always one of the things I kind of hate. I really hate those in RPGs and strategy games where you're supposed to lose.
So funny is that they even have a Glorantha-esque origin story in Suikoden.
I'm not surprised.
It's
no, again, it's also referencing Chinese I guess
it is
stories.
But it's kind of hard to say, oh wait, no, when it's an RPG released in the era it was.
Well, I was going to make a sort of a Hero of a Thousand Faces reference.
Right.
But to the mythos and history of Orlanth.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff even before time even started.
Right. Well, remember, time is...
Because time only exists when the sun died.
Time only
because
exists
if you think about
with
it,
compromise.
Yeah, because if you think about it, when the sun goes down, where is it? It's dead. But it comes back because Orlanth brought it back.
Right. But in any case, they have a discussion here, which is the first action amplifies his later life. Playing in the whistling caves of his mother, Orlanth used the wind to see if he could knock down his half-brother Yinkin. He did, and blew the cat out of the cave, tumbling below to rocks miles away. Orlanth flew to the cave mouth, then leapt and rescued his brother. That was not the last time that Orlanth both caused a disaster and saved the situation at the end.
Which is a nod to Nordic tradition, where the character, where it's usually the trickster character, which is they cause the trouble, you have to fix the trouble. Technically, that's more Eurmal's role, but Orlanth has a little bit of that too.
So one of the other things he
Very
did,
Viking.
As a newborn, armed with only a comb and a rattle, he challenged the Emperor of the Universe, Yelm, to a dancing contest. Yelm did a war dance, Yelm did a ballet, Orlanth did a war dance.
Also, if you're wondering, Yelm won every time.
Because he's Yelm. He's the king. Stormgod also stole the Sword of Death from Humok, his brother.
Death was a thing that got spread around a lot. Some of it's Eurmal's fault. In this case, he wanted it because he really, really fucking hated Yelm.
He's lost every contest to Yelm so far, so his last challenge is a contest of arms. Which, remember, back in this day, nobody could die. So, these contests of arms, it's like, oh, you beat me. Okay, I've got like 50 arrows sticking out of me or whatever. I'm going to be better in about a half an hour, so let's call it a good. You won. Orlanth basically did the equivalent of bringing a fucking nuke to a knife fight.
And killed the God King.
Killed Yelm and basically shattered the world.
Also destroyed the sun.
Yeah,
and also turned him into a cuck.
By the way, here's the thing.
Because he took his wife.
You think destroying the sun would make the trolls happy? No, because Yelm was in the underworld because he was dead. So they had to deal with him.
Well, actually, the trolls were originally in the underworld, which was a great place for them because they were all happy there, and they didn't have to worry about light, and then the fucking sun came down there, and well, they can't stay down there anymore now, can they? Because it's all fucking bright.
And then, because the entire order of the world has been upset because the sun no longer exists, a little thing called chaos creeps in.
Oh yeah,
And
also the
chaos,
sea tries to eat
yeah,
everything too. There's that too.
and chaos is different from, let's say, just disorder or just rebellion or whatever, because chaos is oblivion.
Yeah,
It
there
is
is a disorder rune, which is a rowdiness, but yeah, chaos is it is
this
critical
is
in the making of the new, but by doing that, you risk oblivion and complete destruction, dissolution.
and now that death now exists in the world, a lot of gods started dying
It happened a lot. In
to
fact,
the point where their bones are now used as metal.
if you're wondering where iron comes from, I believe it's their bones, because they were touched by death and they absorbed its trait.
No, iron is actually made by the dwarves. Just they
Ah,
just make it.
bronze. It's bronze then, yeah.
Bronze is the metal that you sometimes get out of the bones of gods, specifically the air gods, because the metals of the sky is tin and the metal of earth is copper. Air
Okay.
is born from the meeting of those two, so therefore it creates the alloy bronze.
They
So,
also do a little reference,
hmm,
because here's the thing. Orlanth will just sometimes turn into a woman. He does that.
Yeah,
It's a Norse thing.
it's also just like, look, there's times when you've got that one asshole who's like, no man of woman born shall kill me. Well,
and
now you
Orland
just
took that
become
as
a
a
woman.
challenge.
Yeah, just become a woman and kill him.
And this is also where the gender Vingan comes from, where a woman takes the role of a man.
Right.
And there's the equivalent where a man takes the role of the woman.
So Orland, realizing he has royally fucked up this time,
Yeah,
decided, you know what I'm gonna do?
this is his biggest fuck up possible, besides the time he sent his brother to the pit of tentacle rape.
No,
They
don't
don't
call it the
mention
pit of
that in this
don't
one.
call it the pit of tentacle rape. Call it its proper name, the sex pit.
Yeah, Orlanth made
Greg,
many mistakes, many such cases.
you can read more about the sex pit in King of Sartar.
Many such cases, yes.
So he decides to take on the Lightbringer's quest, and if
He
this
put
is
on his
ringing,
hat, he got a
yeah,
magic gun powered by the soul of an orphan, and created his own sad Power Rangers outfit. Oh, I'm confusing it with something else.
well, if you start thinking, wait a minute, a young guy fucks up and has to travel to the underworld and does a bunch of quests in order to come back changed, then yes, you have also seen Star Wars or read Gilgamesh
This is the
or
hero's quest. It is the
yeah,
mono myth.
or any hero's journey type story.
It is, in this case, very literal. The only difference is there is no real mentor. Orlanth kind of learns as he does.
So what happens is that Orlanth and his companions go on a bunch of quests, end up bringing back Yelm, and they decide on a compromise,
And that's how time
uh,
was invented.
which the gods say in the god time, and mortals and everyone else stays in time.
Then they cover how Orlanth kind of progressed from there. It talks about his rivalry with Yelm reigniting, because traditionally the people who rallied between the two didn't like each other, and this is still, again, Orlanth is still kind of pissy he lost all those matches.
Though this time it is not Orlanth and Yelm, but their mortal followers.
Yeah.
And this coming in the form of various uh, different cultures fighting each other, one dominating over the other, so on and so forth. You have one character by the name of Harmas Barefoot who
Well,
was able to
we do
unlock.
have to talk
Yeah.
about that. Okay. All right. Are you ready for the real fucking deep dive into the schizo lore of Glorantha? Because it's relevant to everything that comes after. We
Before we
covered
do,
this
I would
partially
love
in.
to show. I think that I forget what the name of this symbol is, but it's common in East Asia. I love the combination of Chinese dragon with triskylons, which is much more of a Celtic and German thing. You have the Greek-style stabbing sword. You have some type of kukri invention. Tibetan-style
That is
sigilas.
that is actually like the Thunderbolt. What he's got in his hand is one of the representations of Thunderbolt
Zeus-like
stuff.
Thunderbolt, and then you have like a
yeah.
Thracian-style wicker shield or Persian-style shield. You can
Made of
see
gold.
the inspiration, and then you have the italic style helmet with the feathers. This is actually very italic.
And of course the horns, because he's a barbarian god. You got to include the horns.
Yes.
Yep.
So back onto the lore. One of the things about Runequest is the ability to go on hero quests, in which you can literally go back to the god time, recreate the mythology, and gain power and resources from that time.
Because if you're wondering, essentially reality is made up of instead of atoms, you're made of runes. Everything is made of runes. So there's a little bit of that god energy and a little bit of that god time still there. The borders aren't quite as strong as you think, especially if you're recreating the myth.
You can stumble into a hero quest by mistake if there's a powerful enough ritual happening or a powerful enough thing.
And if you're cheeky, you can also slightly change the results of things.
And is it any wonder that the followers of the god of heroes is the ones that discover hero questing?
Right. So the very basics, because I'm not going to go through the whole nice lore story again, is that guy dies, nice lore happens, sun gets stopped in the sky, a bunch of bad shit's happening. There's this guy named Harmas Barefoot who's actually directly descended from Orlanth through the line of Vingot and Baron the Rider. Baron being the if you've played Six Ages, that you kind of know this story already. If you don't, the basics are Baron married Redalda, one of the daughters of Vingot, and with him brought horses to the Orlanthi. Very basics there, and she became like the goddess of horses and things like that. And he's just kind of remembered as being the dude.
Basically, he's descended from Orlanth, from the dude who brought the birds, because horses are birds.
They're technically birds, but vaguely birds. They're not really birds. They're bird adjacent.
Anyway, he comes along, he does the thing, and that is how Arcat was a thing. I'm trying to summarize because this thing is really dense, and we still have other gods to cover.
It is. I think then we can go on to sort of what our time now in the Third Age, around the year 1621, 25. At this point, the main area
Well,
where
technically, we haven't even covered the nature of the cult. Well, like we were just talking about the gods' proficiencies.
Yeah,
but back to Harmas. Harmas is the first one to figure out that you can do more than just reenact the myths when you're reenacting the myths. You can go directly to the god time and do some crazy shit. He then brought back a general that was fighting nice lore. Arcat, you kind of know how that one ended with an entire nation getting fucking nuked.
Also realize that can explain the Flesh Man.
Oh yeah, no. Because remember, the editing of the god time is very possible, and that might be the case where the Fletchman didn't exist until this hero quest, but he always did.
I'm just now envisioning. Oh! Imagine the poor Orlanthi guy who's just trying to do some simple god time quest, like something relatively simple to help his tribe. Accidentally gets so fucking lost in the underworld, he accidentally joins the Lightbringers, becomes the seventh.
That can happen. That can happen. Generally, if that sort of thing happens, you're fucked. You're gone. You're not coming back. You're just gonna get lost in the god time, and you'll never be seen again.
From Woodworm, bros have bruised me. Help me, Orlanth.
Oh, if the I'm assuming that's bruise. If it's the bruise that have bruised you, well,
you're gonna get raped.
Fun. Yeah, well, no, that means
we're just going to
enjoy the pregnancy.
You're gonna want to be dead.
Yeah, and enjoy these the xenomorph chest burster coming out of you very soon.
If it's bros, then do what Orlanth does and just kill the guy.
Or just beat them
up.
It'll
work out.
Right. So in general though, Orlanth cult is one of the most influential in Glorantha for a variety of reasons. It's very widespread. It's on both continents. It has a very distinctive view of the world that lends itself very naturally towards people who are, I'll be kind of frank,
Start
are a
shit.
little more, yeah, they want to start shit and be violent. Remember, one of Orlanth's big sayings is violence is always an option.
I think that can bring us to like the different subcults then of
The nature of the
Orlanth.
cult as well. So Orlanthi really refers to more of a general cultural group, sometimes called like the Barbarian Belt. Is like this stretch of land across central Genitala that includes upland Peloria, of course, Cathala and the Holy Country, all the way into Rallios. Then there's some as well on the southern continent, Pamaltella, though they're not as widespread there. They're sort of on the edge of the continent. In general, though, the Orlanthi peoples have this nature of causing or being involved in the great events of the age.
Also, I would point this out. It's the fact that they're kind of unpredictable and changeable, much like storms. I think that actually does help in the setting where, who knows, somebody could just take a chunk of the Earth and turn it into a moon.
Yeah.
That can happen.
We'll cover
Or
the Red Goddess in her book.
yeah,
That's a
or I'm saying, or like maybe, I don't know, you're unable to travel through oceans. You know, weird
Dormal's a
shit
bit
like that.
different. The closing is done by a wizard named Zazabur, who's really pissed off at the God Learners for being heretical fuckheads.
I know, but I'm saying is that this is a world that where stability is not really a thing. And so being adaptable, being ready to embrace the challenge, you can see why it becomes popular.
There's a reason Arcat came back twice and changed a lot of the world whenever he showed up.
Well, he came back once. Twice, maybe. We're not quite sure if there are reincarnations of Arcat running around, but there's this guy called Argrath that's hanging around this this place called Pavis. Hey, isn't it interesting that the translation to the Hjortling languages of Arcat's name comes out more like Argrath? Isn't that a coincidence?
Just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence, guys. Don't read too much into that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
By the way, one
But
of the
in terms
things
of
I like about the cults they do is they give different examples like Orlanth Adventurous, Orlanth Thunderous, and what I like about this is it very much is similar to how the Greco-Roman pantheon handled different takes on the god. For example, Zeus had different identities based on where in the Hellenistic world you worshipped him.
Right, and this is actually an aspect of Glorantha. These are more of a top-down level look, so that you can play adventurers as game characters. But they do note that, like, the name we're using the name Orlanth here because that's the most widely used name. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what everyone calls him. He has different names in different parts of the world. For example, the Pentons call him the West Wing King. When the West King Wind. He's all the way in the southern area. He's got a different name down there as well. He's got a different sort of view to him in these places as well compared to Central Genitala, where like the Pentons see him as very much a war and rebel god. He is the master of the storms, the master of these destructive forces that sweep across the steppes. Kind of a nasty god to follow. He's the god of rebellion because he killed the sun.
That's the thing about air is mutable, fickle, and changes quite a bit. It's not quite as bad as disorder, but it's up there.
like if we look at the different subcults, Orlanth Adventurous, favored by,
young men,
Shit
has
starters.
a fierce rivalry with Yelm,
And
dislikes
the
trolls
trolls.
and are protectors of the earth. However, you look at Orlanth Thunderous, it's the one worshipped by farmers, herders, or those that depend on the weather. It's more fertility oriented, and they extremely dislike the solar cults because when the sun is out, the storms are not out.
There's also the
right.
matter
The
that
fact
one of the more evil storm gods that exist that's technically kin to him by marriage is Daga, the Lord of Drought.
Back to Adventurous though for a second, because I want to point something out here. This whole thing of Warlantha Adventurous is based on this concept of this warband from Proto-Indo-European mythology. They have a direct reference here of it's like that oftentimes these young initiates of Warlanth will basically go out and be assholes out in the countryside, stealing things and fighting each other and proving that they're men.
And
This
yes,
was the
that is
Koryos.
expected among them. Cattle raiding, this is a mechanic that you also had to do in the Dragon Pass games, because it is expected of any righteous Orlanthi to prove your courage, prove your mettle. And what better way to do that than getting yourself into horrible danger, and or starting shit that will get you in massive amounts of trouble.
Or just killed, because again, that's kind of the purpose of this. You see echoes of the Koryos in various traditions across Indo-European peoples, but in general, it was the this ancient concept of basically you just grab all the young men, you shove them somewhere, and you tell them just go do something that isn't going to fuck things up here, and then come back in about a year.
That's legitimately what the Vikings were for.
Going Viking was partially an example of that. There's the Spartan practice of the sending the young warrior men out to terrorize the countryside and suppress the helots is almost certainly a version of this.
And then there's the Jewish practice, which is just read a book.
Read a book, get nerdy.
Not kidding.
That'll stop you.
That's the bar
That'll
mitzvah
stop you
thing. It is you read a section of the Torah.
Well, I mean, the other option is to get hit with stones until dead, or 40 times, depending on the interpretation.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's
if you're wondering,
it's an initiation.
The reason the Jewish people and Semitic people used to use the number 40 is 40 represented essentially a lot. It was essentially countless.
Look, it's more than you have. Yeah, it's like 4 10s, and you have only 2 10s on you. So 4 10s is bigger than 2 10s. But back to Orlanth Thunderous, as mentioned before, Thunderous is the subcult of farmers, of adult men, of people that are taking their place in the community. It's not the part that causes trouble. It's the rain god. It's the one that makes sure the harvest happens. It's not a warrior cult. It can be violent, but it's not a warrior cult.
It's an agrarian cult, legitimately agrarian and fertility cult.
Then you have Orlanth Rex, which is the community leader. It really is not. It can be through birthright. It can be through merit, election. These are the people that the kings worship, that the rulers worship. For instance, in Sartar, the Sartar dynasty that worships the Orlanth Rex does so because they have this belief that they have a hereditary control over that hierarchy.
Essentially, this subcult you mostly find in more organized Orlanthi culture groups.
Yeah, this is the civilized Orlanthi god. This is the one that stops them from killing each other all the time. This was founded in the Second Age by Alcloring Dragonbreaker, who is a very famous hero in the Heroling people's history. He also got shot out of the sky by an elf for being a douche time to that elf, and he didn't realize it.
Is that what he's famous for?
Yeah, that's
Alcloring Dragonbreaker.
Yeah.
One of the things he's famous for is founding the Orlanth Rex cult, fighting and killing dragons on his own, which is fucking insane.
Being a weenie by an elf.
The elf basically, like, he didn't even know he'd pissed off like somebody. He'd caused great offense, and so this elf basically went like, "All right, bet." Draws back his bow and shoots him out of the fucking sky.
So wait, he's just the average Skyrim player.
Basically, yeah, he got one shot by the stealth archer.
But then we have
unconfirmed reports the arrow was to the knee.
Yeah, we have then Orlanth Lightbringer,
which is his Lightbringer role. This is more of the, in a way, it is an element of all of his other aspects, but also that of the penitent. Because again, Orlanth realized he fucked up when he killed Yelm.
And also more mystical.
Oh, I can't wait to see Eurmal Lightbringer. If you're wondering, we have played Glorantha games, and I did play. I was actually able to play a Eurmali, and my take on the character was him as the Lightbringer role, where you use your trickster bullcrap to actually do good.
Well, it's because the rest of the party was full of, well, fucking retards. Quite frankly.
Yes, we were.
We had a
We were.
perfectly normal Storm Bull. That is perfectly normal in every way. If you're wondering, yeah, normal Storm Bull is usually going to cause many a problem, but you want them
As
on
we'll,
your side
yeah,
because they are just as capable of solving those problems with violence.
yes. So within Pass, it's considered a seat of, let's say, Orlanth worship, as Orlanth was born on top the Kirofin Mountain, and so that peak is sacred. There's also the Hill of Orlanth Victorious, which is where he began his Lightbringer quest, as did Harmest Barefoot. There are other areas in the world, a lot of these mountains.
This area is also essentially where the Lightbringer quest started.
Yeah.
Not just in the before time aspect, but also like from a religious point of view. This is where Orlanth's pantheon kind of really was at its strongest. And now the Lunars are ruling it.
Yeah, for how long? I mean, they did try to kill him. That kind of happened.
Stormbull is the one true god of my group. Oh, Squirrel Killer, yeah.
Yeah.
Stormbull, we'll cover Stormbull in this. He's in this book. He's great.
Yeah.
He's also fucking psychotic.
He's great.
So to go over with some of the magic or the benefits that they get, your different type of worship of Orlanth is going to grant you different abilities.
In this case, they usually give you
specialties.
magics, rune magics. They give you the ability to cast. Everyone can cast magic in this setting, just really quickly.
Yep, everybody has access to spirit magic, and spirit magic is basic. Well,
hold
almost everybody
on.
has access to spirit magic, and spirit magic is basically I tell a spirit to do something, and I sacrifice a bit of my energy for it, and it does that thing.
Wait. A game where anyone can use magic, no matter what level, and also special powers that have to be, I guess, reset different times. I wonder what popular video game series this also connects to.
There's also restrictions based on your chosen cult. Basically, you have to fulfill aspects of the being.
Initiates usually have
they have a
the
lot
way to
of
put it is that
liberties, but you usually have to at least follow the basic principles. In this case, Orlanth has 6 virtues. Try to abide by them, and you're fine. It's similar to how Stormbull's big thing is just go out and murder chaos, rip and tear until it's done.
And then your rune lords, depending on your different path, have also different abilities.
Rune lords being those particularly invested in the cult and in the understanding of mystical arts of the world.
I actually like this with the Orlanth Adventurous, the Wind Lord. Wind Lords have special obligations to meet. If a solar priest or lord is met peacefully, you must cry out the following: "Wandering son, jealous uncle, I have a new toy here. See it? Test me twice if you can. For a gold piece, each right answer." Which answering a contest of riddles.
You basically have to still challenge them. It's required because Orlanth always challenged Yelm. Even if he lost, you still have to do it. Because you cannot, again, Orlanth Adventurous are the shit talkers and the shit starters. This is their way to still fulfill their oath. Other things you have to do is you pay a particularly nasty tithe. But then again, you're going out and robbing people, so it's fine. You get to
it's
keep
90%.
10%.
Okay, 90% of your income, you might think, oh, that's a huge deal. And here's the thing: you're a rune lord. That 90%, about half of that at least, is going directly back to supporting you.
Yeah, so that's not a big deal. Besides, you're already robbing and murdering people, probably. So, it's fine.
I mean, you're basically engaging in murder hobo antics for the good of your god. Wind lords are the people that are the tribal kings, that are the wandering bands of warriors going on dangerous quests and trying to recover artifacts or save people from chaos or whatever else. That's their purpose. Rune priests are the ones that run the temples, and that's why they're the Thunderous, because they have to stay in one place and kind of be like, yeah, here's all of the air cult stuff. Here's all of that. I have to eat an egg every week to make sure that Yelm gets pissy.
Yeah, Yelm hates eggs. It's just a well-known fact in this world.
It's basically because part of Yelm is the bird. it's complicated. So eating the egg is basically saying, yeah, fuck you, Yum. The yolk is the sun, so you know.
Oh man, Squirrel Killer, get back up, Satan! I ain't heard no bell. Yeah, we're gonna
That's
cover that too.
That's Stormbull. Oh
But then
man.
we have the various other, like, I guess, subservient cults.
Yes. So to understand the difference between a subcult and an associated cult and all this, here's my basic way of understanding this. Orlanth has two major subcults, which is Adventurous and Thunderous. The reason for this is that Orlanth's faith is so widespread and so encompassing of a major
Also
deity.
variable.
It's a variable one, that you have these two separate traditions that sort of run alongside each other. It's not unusual to be initiated into both, but in general you choose one or the other. And depending on your location, you might only have access to one. That's why it's a subcult. It's part of this larger overarching Orlanth cult.
So, like, for example, instance, in a more flat area of fertile land, you probably will run into more Orlanth Thunderous sorts. Where he's just a rain god.
And probably their god Barantar.
Who we'll get to.
Who and something else just to bring up with Runequest, like Barantar can grant you the ability to use the rune spell Plow, which is literally to be able to plow normal or rocky land at quadruple the rate.
Yeah,
and
I'd say in like D&D or in other more combat-oriented games, why would you ever take this?
You're joking, but there's actually a spell in D&D called Astana's Stew, which allows you to just create a holy pot of stew that is nutritious, filling, and healing, and you can use it to boil zombies alive.
But that's the point. It's all combat-oriented.
No, it isn't. It's mainly used for
it's combat on the side.
On the side. The thing is,
it's incidental. It's the same as like. Did you know there's a boat that looks like a duck that you can paddle? Yeah, swan boats. That's a thing. That's not combat related.
All right. Here's just a little back up a second here. We should also talk about the other thing about initiating. If you break the thing about initiating is that initiating is a big step. If you just want the god to not be pissed at you and like maybe give you a little bit of a boon every once in a while, you're what's called a lay member. You're donating your time or some food to the local priest. You're going to the worship ceremonies. You're in general saying, "Hey, please don't bother me." The initiation is where the god is giving you a little bit of their power. And in exchange, you need to start to obey their dictates. You can't betray the cult.
They have requirements and taboos.
More accurately, for Orlanth, it's more like you can't go against the cult entirely. If you become this complete asshole that's killing people, betraying the clan, betraying the family, hurting other initiates, you might get expelled from the cult. And if you get expelled from the cult, that's when Orlanth's spirits of reprisal come after you. Some of them are like, they just make milk sour, or fire is hard to start, and your wine turns into vinegar. Other ones will just are ugly bat-winged creatures with bronze fists that swing down to beat you to death.
Bear in mind, these are reserved for those that are oath breakers, cult murderers, killing somebody protected by Orlanth's hospitality, or profaned in a place holy to Orlanth.
Basically, every time you do this, they will come up to beat your shit at any time you get into a fight. Which is just like... How Orlanth.
Yes.
But we have the other subcults to talk about, like the Four Magic Weapons is a subcult that, in general, you have the stupidest idea of how do I put this? You have this idea of the Four Magic Weapons are things that Orlanth wielded in his quests. In certain cults, like in Dragon Pass, like in the Sartorites, for example, these weapon cults are considered part of the overall Orlanth cult for Orlanth Adventurous. They're already worshipped as part of it, so you don't need to consider it a subcult. These are the ones that provide like lightning, Mistwalk, all those spells you saw for Adventurous earlier as a special rune magic. Most of those are in this subcult.
An example of this that you could see would be in Egypt, where you could worship Ra, who is the sun, who is the Lord of the Sun, but there's also the Aten, the disc that he guides.
Right. In this case, it'd be more like in other lands, you might say, ah, right, Orlanth Adventurous. He's great and all, but I specifically am looking to just be talking about lightning. So I'm going to sacrifice my power to the cult of the lightning spear to get that lightning, which is part of the Orlanth cult. But it's a subcult. It's not considered just something that Orlanth does. It's specifically the spear of Orlanth that you are worshiping.
Oh, by the way, Isseries came by and negotiated a trade deal. I got some goods out of that. Sorry about that.
Okay. Then, of course,
I'm
Sartar is a
not
subcult.
kidding. This is God time for real.
Sartar has a subcult. There's, of course, other weapons that Orlanth used. Just hint, hint. You can create your own rune spells or justify having them through hero quests and things like that.
Like, for example, you could have him be like, oh yeah, he defeated the god of thorns and took his whip sword, which is essentially an Indian whip sword, and that could be one of the weapons, the cultists that you can find in that area.
Right, or it's just that's a spell that creates a bendy sword that you can use like a whip.
Or perhaps, as Nito somewhat referencing, is plowing. Having a special plow.
I mean, Orlanth is really good at that, as well as also the many drinks. Also, that is an actual. Here's a really fun subcult you could totally do. The 100 different alcohols that Orlanth tried during his wedding to Arnalda.
You could definitely do something like that. I don't know how good that would be, but it would be definitely flavorful for Glorantha.
I would have it be like it's a minor subcult, and it's essentially you could have it maybe be an aspect of Barntar, like it could be an aspect of Barntar or something.
It'd be probably more related to Melanster, who's the god of beer.
Or Melanster, either or.
Right, but in any case, they also talk about Vinga. Vinga is effectively both two things at once: Orlanth's daughter and Orlanth's female counterpart and incarnation.
Which sounds weird and disgustingly woke to some people, but this is like something you'd see in, again, Nordic sagas.
Also for the fact
been around
that,
would switch
also
genders.
For the fact that Vinga is worshipped as a standalone deity in some areas. So
in a lot of like the classic like Sardar Heartland, Vinga is worshipped as a standalone. Often by the women of the Orlanth Adventurers cult. The worshippers dye their hair red.
By the way, here she is. Note that she is armed with the same weapons. The helmet is
slightly different. She has a spear rather than that dragon head.
I just realized that the helmet, I think, is based on the Mycenaean horn helm. But it has I might be wrong. I could be smart. No, wait, no. It's I think Assyrian, actually, because of the point. Yeah. Assyrian style helmet or Egyptian style upper kingdom, I think.
And then, of course, the WWE Championship belt.
Also, she's topless, just to let you know.
Yeah, well, that's normal. Like, everybody's topless.
I know. I'm just pointing that out.
It's
even the men.
If the tits aren't out, that's for questioning.
Remember, there was the Minoans had this entire civilization based around the most fashionable thing for women being rock out with the tits out.
I mean, that's not exactly uncommon. You find cultures like that in, you can find them in northern South America, Africa, and parts of Southeast Asia.
Oh, places that are very hot.
It's very useful to not die from overheating.
Yes.
Right.
But you also have Vingat, the son of Orlanth, Vorth, another son who is a shepherd.
This is what the lineage of Sartar claims descent from, if I recall.
Yep. Sartar.
Well, everybody technically claims descent from Vingat if you're a part of the Orlanthi peoples.
The Thunderbird, the Thunder Brothers, and
also, if you're wondering, yes, the Praxians worship animals. Thunderbird is their version of Orlanth, essentially.
Sort of. Thunderbird is his own spirit. He's a very powerful spirit that lives out in the wastelands of Prax, and he's one of the three feathered rivals, along with Sunahawk and Raven. They are their own unique cults and entities. That's why they're sub-cults. They're not they're worshipped often as part of the Orlanth cult, but you can very much just go over to Thunderbird and sacrifice to him directly.
I also love the Thunder Brothers because they're very clearly a nod to Fujian and Raijin, the twin demons that result in storms.
They're, effectively speaking, they are the offspring of Orlanth, with his
Which
many
is funny
companions.
because there is an actual hypothesis that Fujian and Raijin, the Japanese deities that relate, these demons, actually originated from whispered interpretations of Zeus from India because
That's
of
a
the
wild theory.
Bactrians.
That's a wild theory. In any case, the Thunder Brothers are, effectively speaking, the minor gods of the Orlanthi pantheon. You've got a lot of, think about them as like being, this is the B-roll heroes of the Orlanthi cinematic universe.
It's similar to how there's the
The
muses, but there's
literal
also
thunderbolts.
specific muses. Like there are specific muses dedicated to certain theaters and plays and performances. You can worship
And
the
then
muses, or you could just worship one.
yeah, and then that's kind of how it goes. Then they talk, of course, about the heroes, all of whom have various important things about them. Alcurling Dragonbreaker, the one that founded the Rex subcult, attacked the Empire of Worm's friends and killed, well,
A dragon.
yeah. I want to know, he killed a dragon, and again, when the Earth settled from the fight, there was a hero where a priest had been.
Sounds about right.
And as I said, he was killed in battle by Tabasta Greenbow, an elf lord who led the Eldriami armies against the dragons at the end of the Second Age. Basically, he only killed Alcaloring because he did a stupid and pissed off some elves.
Oh,
Didn't even realize he'd done it, but well, you cross the forest, you get fucked.
Then you have
the elves in Glorantha do not fuck around.
You have Hatrat Blowhard, which is a troll.
Yes, a troll that worshipped Orlanth. His cult is still popular in the Yelp Mountains.
And there's Harmast Barefoot, who is actually a Barntar initiate who became a hero.
Yes, he was a Barntar initiate that became a follower of Orlanth through basically a ritual. This goes back to Nicelor. Basically, Nicelor had a priest of Orlanth on his side called Locomaedon. Locomaedon tried to route all the worship of Orlanth to him to become an immortal deity, basically. In the end, the guy that initiated Harmast beat him to fucking death. So didn't quite work out for him.
Yeah. You have a bunch of other people. You have also the associated
one you
cult
should
with the
know.
Lightbringers.
Well, the one you should also know specifically is Sartar, mainly because he's kind of responsible for a lot of the stuff that your characters are directly tied to.
Yes, the Kingdom of Sartar is tied directly to the Hero Wars because, well, really the thing that kicks it off is this whole thing called Dragon Rise, where
dragons wake up and things go horribly.
A dragon wakes up
wrong,
and everybody hits the emergency. Oh fuck! We need the celestial nukes button. Because somebody just summoned a fucking true dragon.
Oh no, an antediluvian woke up. Please, an antediluvian has nothing compared to a Glorantha.
It nearly ate the moon.
It
took the Red Emperor and the Red Goddess to both fight it off. Like,
but it was hungry.
And no one knows where it went. It's somewhere in Glorantha now, and no one fucking knows where.
I like the idea that it's just napping on the moon and like occasionally swatting at evil Genghis Khan.
Now, evil Genghis Khan is in a lunar hell somewhere on the moon, like way deep inside of the moon.
Yeah,
getting tortured by.
Welcome to Glorantha. Genghis Khan is on a prison on the moon.
It's ironic because he actually flew up to the moon to go raid it and burned down the Emperor's palace once.
I'm gonna say eat your heart out, D&D.
King Solaris is a fucking Chad.
D&D has some creativity, but yeah, you don't cook stuff like that.
You don't usually have Genghis Khan XP flies to the moon, burns it down, does it fucking again.
You don't have Jojo the Bobo and his clown army.
But you do have King Kong and Skull Island and the expedition at the Barrier Peaks, which has an alien land down on your sword and sorcery setting.
I will say,
yeah.
There's creativity. It's just it's not inclined towards the mythological like this one is.
You've got you've got various other gods. You've got
Shalana
cults
Arroy,
worshipped in
which
other
is a
lands.
very useful healing deity.
The associated cults very very simple. Shalana Arroy, Eurmal, Fleshman, Isserys, Linkormai, easy enough. Those are the Lightbringers.
Well,
the other ones that are associated
important.
Yeah, the other ones associated: Ernalda, his wife, the Grain Goddesses, who Orlanth had as his side pieces, and Gizzy, who is the Creekstream River, which creates the Skyfall Lake. Gives you a flood spell. Heller, the rain god, is Orlanth's good companion. Also, maybe side piece.
It depends on whenever Heller or Orlanth are their forms.
Depends on which form they are. Yeah. Enora, who is Orlanth's half sister and a bitch.
Carofin, his mother.
Yeah, he was born from a mountain.
Yeah, Kolat, who is the father of the Seven Winds. Masakos, his charioteer. Odalia, his son, also known as the Sky Bear. Stormbull, one of his brothers. Valand, a kinsman. He is a nephew of Orlanth, I think.
Nephew. And Yinkin, half-brother.
And Yinkin, his half-brother. Yinkin is great. Yinkin is best boy, and he must be protected.
And Yig.
Yig is an asshole, but he listens to Orlanth.
But you have then the various other lands and how they interpret him.
I love this section because it makes a very specific point. That this cult that we just described here is very specific to Dragon Pass. Here's where and how it is different around Dragon Pass.
So, for example, in Isrolia, which is actually run by the Earth Goddesses and their cults rather than the Air Gods, well, Storm and Air. No, it's not that Orlanth is the dominant husband. He's just the most important side piece to Ernalda.
Right, and his son is a very popular god because plowing.
Mm-hmm. And as mentioned by Not Nito, Barntar is also known for plowing.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's his job.
That's his job. He is the plow god.
Yeah. You have Fronella, which having a lot of more tribal confederations and a lot more sort of developed civilization, there's a lot more association with Orlanth Rex.
Right.
Mineria
has a bunch of it. The trader princes are the overland trade controllers of that area while the closing is happening. So they've lost a lot of their power, but they're still important.
Peloria, which
this is where the Red Goddess is from, and where the part of the solar religion is. So it's only really been ever big in the Highlands,
and it's been subdued.
Right. For the most part, it's subdued.
Basically, the big problem with Orlanth is, in some cases, it's just straight up prescribed. You can't worship him, specifically because of the adventurous aspect.
Because he's an asshole, and he will ruin nice things and rebel against the rightful order of the world.
Now, and he keeps saying that somehow those demons and various other chaotic features on the forces of the Lunar Empire are somehow wrong, when clearly he hasn't been illuminated. He should understand that they're wrong, or that they're good.
And in Prax, he's basically the god of outcasts and wanderers. Think of him sort of like this. You have somebody who doesn't really fit into their tribe for whatever reason, and he's not following Waha. He's not following a Stormbull. Yeah, just chuck him at the Orlanth cultist. The Orlanth cultist will teach him the ropes to keep him alive.
It also is the main deity among the Poljoni.
Yes, the Poljoni are very much Orlanthi that have moved into Prax. They're the bastard tribe because they ride horses. Rallios is where it gets really interesting.
Rallios, to sort of summarize, it's like a traditional sort of Conan setting.
Rallios is fantastic for
if you want to fight your evil sorcerers controlling.
There's an evil sorcerer named what is his name? Argan Shadow that controls a city as a tyrant. That he fobs off. He ate his mother. Let me
and
whose
get the spirit notes of this guy. Nags him to this day.
Yes, Argan Terror. That's the name. Argan Terror. He's only not conquered the world because he's having a shouting match with his dead mother every day.
In reality, it's just because he's such a fucking nerd. He wants to read and be left alone.
Yeah, basically his city is ran by people. He's just like, fucking run it. Just don't. I don't even give a shit.
Run it. Don't burn it down. Allow me to buy my books and whatever.
And he hates all gods equally. So if you are even a prescribed cult in another land, you can find a home in his city because he will hate you just as much.
You're all crap. So come on in.
Yeah. Then we get into the really fun stuff. So now, remember how I mentioned that the Melchioni have a very interesting view of the world? They're monotheists.
In a world of polytheists.
Which gives us into the realm of the henotheistic heresies, of which Ralios is the core and the center of, partially because of Arcat, partially because it's the border region between the Melchioni heartlands of the west and the Orlanthe cults of like central Ganartala. So you get some weird shit. And you get this absolutely awesome dude named Surentir. Surentir goes to the mountain that's claimed to be Orlanth's home. Basically, think of Mount Everest. It's not the tallest mountain, but it is, in fact, a very tall mountain. It's the second tallest mountain in Ginartala, and it has a nice neighbor that is known as the Earth Mother, because it's Ernalba's mountain, obviously. And it is a pilgrimage point for Orlanthe all across Peloria, Frenella, and Ralios. Surikin did his fun pilgrimage there. And Surikin, like Moses upon the mountain, had a revelation. See, Orlanth wasn't just the best god. No. He was the supreme god. As in the supreme god of Melchioni, the invisible god. And all the Lightbringers...
a blending of a king god and a storm warrior god? I wonder where I've heard that from.
And like the Lightbringers, no, they're not deities in and of themselves. They are aspects of me. They're parts of my body and my will and my motivations.
Wait a minute.
So
there's this horrible sci-fi writer who looks like he wants to LARP as Santa Claus. He created a parody religion that had one god with 7 faces and aspects.
Now, to be fair to that guy, the details on Ralios really didn't come out until the Guide to Glorantha in about 2013.
I know, I just wanted to point that out because I wouldn't be surprised if they borrowed from the 7 who are one.
There is definitely parts of that in both the Arcat cult and this, but that was already a part of like the idea of these Melchioni heresies, that they were interpreting the gods as part of the invisible god with the henotheistic sects.
I mean, in fairness, one of the cool things about this setting is you have the materials to understand the cult, so you can make variations of the cult. An example of this that I did, we'll cover him later, is I depicted that god as a 3-legged raven that had lights, that basically had the sun orb to represent the Lightbringer aspect of the guy. We'll talk about him. He's just not yet.
Yeah, but again, Surentir, though, after going there, came back down and was like, guys, this is the truth, and I am right. They all called him, of course, then Surentir the Heretic, because this was fucking nutso stuff. Turns out there were a bunch of people who didn't think that he was a heretic and thought that this is a brilliant revelation.
Why are you booing me? You know I'm right.
Yeah, so he took over a city and then promptly declared he would be known as the non-heretic.
L'chaim.
Surentir the non-heretic then would proceed to establish a tribal confederation and beat the shit out of one of the Ralios city-states that had come to fight him, with the help of another Orlanthe hero named Sigil Cloudcrusher and Garandir. Garandir is great. The guy throws javelins and rides on them.
Yeah, no,
he just does that.
Are we sure these aren't the Jews of the setting?
They kind of are inspired.
This is the origin of Judaism. Yeah.
I mean, this could basically, if you wanted to go like real mystic Judaism as like your influence on how Surentir behaves, go for it. Or he's Thulsa Doom, you know, like go with what you want. I'm just open to interpretation.
The kosher prescription is specifically because of a chaos outbreak of brews on pork. So after that, they've just prescribed it completely.
Go for it. Like it's left relatively unfluffed for a reason, because if you want to play in Ralios, make up whatever you want.
Ragnaglar,
it's a sword and sorcery setting.
Also, Ragnaglar has the aspect of a pig.
Oh.
Instead of a goat? Okay, that's interesting.
Well, I mean,
And also,
it also kind of highlights the uncleanliness, the brew aspect of them.
Yeah.
also,
They
I'm
mentioned
pretty sure Orlanth would be down to wrestle somebody.
yes.
Oh, he
They
would.
talk, but right. The Southern Continent has a population of Orlanthi and northwestern Paneltella, mostly thunderous and adventurous. Variety of names for the god and several unique subcults as well. No Rex cult though. And there's even a small amount of Orlanthi on Christras Island in Jurastella, aka the place where the Godlearners came from. In any case, they specify here with a couple of neat things about being an Orlanth worshipper. One of which is that, well, mythologically speaking, use whatever weapon you want because Orlanth killed a bunch of gods and stole their shit.
Also,
He
another,
murder hoboed his way across pantheons.
but there is another thing. Kinstrife. Essentially, kinslaying is prescribed against because family is very important to Orlanthi and Orlanth himself. In fact, he on more than one occasion was forced to spare people that he otherwise would kill because of ties of blood.
Right. Also, weather. If there is a change in weather coming, you know is an initiative Orlanth. And if you're a Wind Lord or a Storm voice, you know that ahead of time by a day.
Which is extremely useful.
Yeah, it's one of those side bennies.
So
Then we get to Shalana Roy. This is one of my favorite goddesses of the setting, mostly because she's very unique. She is known as the White Lady, the goddess of compassion, daughter of Glorantha herself, and is both a Lightbringer and part of the Solar Pantheons. She's known as Orisa in like Pent and things like that. She's a widely worshipped goddess.
she's
Because
also
everybody,
not violent. She is
the opposite of violence, in fact.
There's a vow of pacifism, yes.
but in
Complete
exchange,
pacifism.
you heal people.
To
a lot of people.
inflict, to beget wounds runs against her calling.
Right, she's the healer. Her whole purpose is to try to heal the world. And you might think, well, that sounds kind of lame. That seems like a bad thing
No.
for an adventurer. No, this is a really powerful cult if you have a player willing to lean into that. This is a player that can go right into the middle of a battlefield, grab a commander, and basically tell them whatever the fuck they want to. No one will touch them. The healers of Shalana Roy are sacredly protected by the Orlanth cult. If you harm one of them, the entire cult is obligated to basically murder the fuck out of whoever hurt you.
And because she is one of the most peaceful deities, she is very popular outside of Orlanthi tradition. She has many names or guises, at least traits of. So doing this could invite her wrath because while she has patience, she's also willing to ignore things like, oh no, your leg broke. Well,
I've
it's
got
not
more
going to heal,
pressing
right?
matters. It's got more pressing matters, so I need to heal others before you.
Or alternatively, oh, the magic didn't hold. I guess you're going to have to let that injury heal normally.
And this is to the point, she's willing to heal anyone, including
Yes.
chaotic beings.
Yes.
Lay members. Also, the very interesting part of her is that as her worshippers, she is a pacifist of God, yes, and everyone respects them. Not politically all the time. Their political influence is usually kind of low because it's like, all right, if you follow with me here, imagine, if you will, someone who's a pacifist on a war council, a complete pacifist. They're going to get ignored, but they're still important and will still be listened to, at least, if not, actually heeded. Another part of this is that their temples are places of caring and compassion, charity work. There are no animal sacrifices. All lay members must be vegetarians.
Which is actually a nod to Jaina Dharma. I mean, at least slightly. Jaina Dharma actually believes strongly in the concept of amisa, which is a prohibition against violence, and that includes the consumption of victuals. A proper Jainist diet actually goes as far as to try to figure out which plants can actually survive, because it's suffering to even eat, because you inflict damage on others by doing so. So what they did was they figured out what plants survive when I get my materials from them to eat, which is actually why Jainists usually eat fruit. and other things that necessarily won't cause an animal's death or a plant's death. This is also why they wear face masks, to avoid breathing in bacteria. It is
That's a little.
legitimately a spiritual refusal of violence. And you could
They
totally
even
run
go.
a Chalana Arroy cultist like that, and I think that'd be really cool.
Another mention is that there are in fact brew that are members of this cult. If you're wondering why, it's because anyone with a sincere wish to heal may join the cult. And here's another little bit of a tidbit of secret lore about Shalana Roy. She's illuminated. She has no fear of chaos.
So
so therefore, illuminated creatures of chaos are welcome within her cult. Like the healer of the wild healer of the Rockwoods, who is a brew that has decided to go against his brew nature and try to heal the world.
I mean, I believe Razzlekark has a priestess of
Razzlekark has
Roy.
a priestess of Shalana Roy with him as a brew.
He does.
Yes. She is a goddess of compassion, and that means compassion for everyone, no exceptions. This doesn't mean that she has to just lean down and accept dying. No, she doesn't. But she just can't do violence directly.
Like, for instance, the spirit of reprisal that she has is... It's not an actual, like, spirit. It's just that they are unable to resist infection from disease. So no physical harming, but...
Although I would say that there are a couple of thoughts that you have to think through, because, for example, bone setting. Technically, to set a bone straight, you might have to cause pain.
But that's in the process of... You're causing injury to heal.
There's limits. They talk about this with the Aroyan subcult, because that's the one that focuses on the more physical aspects of medicine, because he lost his magic in the end of the darkness, and kind of came up with all the methods of how do we heal people without magic.
Also, as Warner put out, D&D was cooked up by people super high, unlike Runequest, which was made by a bunch of super high anthropologists.
That is true.
No, it was made by Greg Stafford, who was probably not that high, probably only occasionally high.
He indulged in LSD occasionally, but it wasn't routine. It wasn't like Phil
Mercado. Ayahuasca probably instead, because remember, he was a practicing shaman.
But either way, he didn't go full Phil Mercado. This was just stuff he thought about, because what he'd do is he'd go, so there's this traditional culture of healing, and reminder that the Indo-Aryan subculture is actually tied to the Indo-European aspect because of these commonalities between them, and therefore the concept of suffering, like Amisa as a concept, like that's the type of thing he would do. He would think about thinking while he was thinking.
Right, and again, the spirit magic that they have
also a little bit of I would say Judaism, in the sense of ablutions. Very strict ablutions are common in temples of Chalana or Roy.
Yes, and again, they talk a little bit about the associated cults, like, of course, Fleshman, various subcults of hers that are known across Glorantha. There is a few miscellaneous notes. They never ask for payment directly. However, the other gods basically don't want Shalana or Roy to be pissed off. So the gods basically tell their followers, if you're going to a healer, like an actual healer, like as in like a capital H healer of Shalana or Roy, you need to bring with you a payment of some kind. For a farmer, this might be like half of that he will bring half of his milk for a year to the temple.
Or alternatively, a selection of his best fruits or best grain.
Right. And the greater the gift, the more honor the giver. And of course, the more likely that the healers are to immediately treat you when they see you, because they know that you show compassion back. If you're a stingy bastard, well...
They'll heal you because mercy, but they're not going to cry too much if they take a while to get to you.
Right.
Which brings up that while Shalana Roy does value all life equally, she understands the hierarchy of values, that plants are eaten for food, and in fact animals can be killed if it is needed to heal another being or a more valuable animal.
By the way,
however, here's another the killing nice of sentient life is...
Here's another nice depiction of Chalana or Roy from a different culture base, just to give you ideas that her depictions, like all of the other deities, tend to have variations, which I really like.
Yes, and there's also stuff about sweepers and keepers. Remember how you were talking about the giants?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that there is a small group in the Holy Country where their practice is to carry a broom with them to sweep the ground free of insects and other small animals in front of them as they walk.
Which is something
Which
that the
means
chains do.
that they pay orphans to keep the area around the hospital swept clear so that the healers can pass without harming anything.
That is correct. That's actually something that the chains do.
And then there's another group that's the keepers, where their whole idea is that why are you sweeping them away? You're touching them. You're disturbing them. Just step around them. Leave them in peace.
That's really cute. But also, as mentioned, some of the other deities that we kind of very quickly, yep, they show that she's known as Erisa, as mentioned. Her son Aroin
Yep,
is
very
actually
important.
of more importance among the elves.
Yes, because he helped heal the forests and he stayed among them.
Yeah.
He is one of their 3 great protectors because of that.
Yes.
Though we could move on to Eurmal, and
Eurmal is
my boy.
all right.
Here we
appreciate
go.
that picture.
Here we go.
Look at this picture.
He's
Look at
already
this
giving you the
picture.
finger.
He's
got
already giving you the finger. His description is fantastic.
The divine clown himself. He's great.
Though armed with the divine energy and power, this troublemaker is a jester and a fool. His tricks altering the world in unforeseen ways. His pranks have seemingly equal chances to create or destroy. Eurmal can be helpful, as illustrated when he distracted the gate guards of hell so the Lightbringers could slip by, but more often he is malicious, such as when he ate all the flying raccoon babies.
Yes, he did.
He is just as often the scapegoat or the butt of jokes as he is the prankster. Eurmal is a self-indulgent buffoon. Eating, drinking, and fornicating are his favorite activities. Thievery and callousness are his entertainments. Every sensible deity throws this bum out of their pantheon if possible, and every sensible human throws any worshipper out of their house. Only Orlanth can sometimes control him.
Some of his greatest callings in life, or as a god, includes cucking Lightface, breaking the unbreakable Cliffface, finding and stealing Death, and then giving it to the rest of the Pantheon just to play with, and so much more. He also once tricked a fish god into believing that because he was from an island, they were kin. This guy's great. He's one of my favorite deities.
Would it help explain things if he's the child of Ratslav and Talena, the sources of disorder and illusion?
Oh yeah, yes he is. I want to note that the descriptions for the cult is wild as fuck. They talk about with the God Project is that maybe the trickster sabotaged Gabaji and Arkat, and maybe Arkat is actually just an avatar of Eurmal in time.
Like they
Wouldn't that be something?
The
well,
Eurmal
there's
religion,
also the matter that any sane recollections of his origins may have actually been forced into being by the God learners themselves.
Yes, because they decided to this guy called Hafdalos the Non-Wise, which is a fucking great name, created a Temple of United Eurmal, which collected all known Eurmal shrine types so trickster priests could have trained all trickster rune spells at once. It worked. No new spells were found though, and it was kind of a failure because he was trapped into a unescapable feast where all other guests were boggles and madmen. He's still there. The temple went bankrupt, was condemned to be razed, and then Slantos, where it was flipped over the ocean. So he is somewhere down at the bottom of the ocean, still forever being forced to do a mad feast.
So some fun origins about this guy, because he is actually my favorite of the Lightbringers because he's just such a shit poster. He once released a great horde of boggles at Yelm's feast. And this was back before Death, so he was seen as harmless. Then he started fucking around with Death by giving it to everyone. And people grew to hate him. He also got eaten by a fish.
And then born again.
Yeah,
multiple
Eurmal
times.
was swallowed by the Goled, the king of the fish, and then he fell in love with the daughter. Goled fell in love with the daughter of Earth. Kalira became the goddess of Kaliria, the floating island, and then gave birth to Eurmal once more.
This is actually how he tricked the sea god into calling himself a brother or a cousin.
It goes more nuts. So the nature of the cult, very specifically, he's often depicted as provocatively dressed, impishly grinning with sharp teeth, usually holding a bag of tricks, and then making an obscene gesture with his other hand.
In his own recollections, it's because the rest of the gods of this world have chosen to make me the butt of the joke. Well, fuck the world. I don't care if it gets destroyed.
All right. He's both subhuman and superhuman, bestial and divine.
Correct.
His chief and most alarming characteristic is his unconsciousness of himself. He's so unconscious of himself that his body is not at unity, his two hands often fighting each other. He takes his anus off and entrusts it with special tasks. Even his sex is optional. Despite its phallic qualities, he has been known to transform himself into a woman and bear children simply to sow disorder.
Yes, he has.
He is not truly evil. He does the most atrocious things through sheer lack of rational thought or self-awareness.
He is an honest-to-goodness Looney Tune.
He is a divine clown, and I love him for it.
His cult stuff is absolutely bonkers.
So here's some examples. Life after death. Yeah, funeral rites are not important at all. They openly put forth that life and death are actually both illusions. Yeah, that it just changes with experience.
His initiates are supposedly under the protection of the Orlanth cult, though this only goes so far. They have a bunch of cult skills. They have a bunch of rune spells. The rune spells they have are genuinely ones meant to cause just absolute pandemonium.
And here's the reason Orlanth accepts him, because besides being sort of the outcast king, sort of, at least in some respects, he serves a critical role in pointing out, because one of Eurmal's roles is pointing out the hypocrisy of existence and to highlight things people miss. Because as the great liar and fool and idiot, if even he can see it, that means something is wrong, or he catches something no one else could think of because they don't think like he does.
Yeah,
that's extremely useful.
Yeah, the Fool is his most common cult, but there's a few others that are worth mentioning, such as the Lightbringer, obviously.
Which is a fun one.
The Glutton, which has a rune spell that allows you to just
swallow I love
something.
The statue that they made of him. I love me and the boys right before I go and cuck Lightface.
The Dismembered, of course, because you have a rune spell that allows you to remove body part.
The Imp.
Because why not? You need to send your penis on an adventure sometimes, I guess.
No. I just figured.
Well, no.
No. Remember, there's a fire god whose big thing is his phallus. You cut that one off. You chip it off, and just put yours on there instead. To honor the fire god and to cuckold him.
Well, also you shrank yours as well. Just I don't care if I have.
Oh no, it was always that small.
In any case, there's also the murderer.
He's also the destroyer.
I have to read the seducer. In Peloria, an idle boast causes the local king to test a trickster who successfully seduces almost every female sent to him, including a century-old virgin priestess, 100 leopard women, and a grizzly bear.
He also once legitimately fucked a creature with vagina teeth.
Well, no,
he was finally halted by Gorma, who has the
he may be insane, but he knows not to stick his dick in that.
That's also the Gorma is an absolutely terrifying goddess, and there you go. He also seduced a demon of darkness that devoured her lovers.
She ate him, but he got better.
Ate him, but he got better.
Yeah, he's done it before.
Shape changing as well is another big one. He can change into become something other, such as another sex, another shape. That's actually one of his most popular spells because it's so easy to use for trickery and foolery. And
one of the fun ones is for the Lightbringers because he is actually given as a fucked up sort of Promethean role, the bringer of fire from the darkness.
Well, right. He's one of the people that found it and brought it back out of the darkness.
But the fact that he has the knowledgeable Promethean bringer of fire role is kind of fun. It's just that little little add-on that adds just that nuance to this divine clown.
And like for the trickster priest, as the rune priest, in Orlanthia society, his primary role is as the scapegoat.
They are generally respected by holy people in their community, but you're still the fucking clown.
Well, you're not just the clown, but you're expected to cause trouble.
Eurmal also has no spirits of retribution because he's a sacred clown.
You also got what you deserved, probably.
Yeah, miscellaneous note is basically that clowns have a sacred clown role, and as long as you're in a ritual role, you can freely violate sacred laws, as long
So
as you
again,
are dressed in a special costume and acting like a freaking idiot.
so this does explain Jojo the Bow and his clown army.
Yes.
It does, and it also leads to why you can legitimately go in to shit up hero quests as long as you dress appropriately in parody of as your role.
Right. This is also why they're fantastic hero questers, because they can take any role you need them to.
But now we're on
Though, of
to
course, trusting a trickster is roughly akin to trusting a dingo not to eat your baby. So
now we're on to
don't
Ceres.
don't worry, he won't eat your baby. He's just gonna eat the
Ceres-
flying raccoon baby.
Oh, true. Isseries is kind of a cult of this. This is just the trade cult, guys. There's a lot of interesting stuff here, but I'm just going to be quite simple here.
Trade.
This is just the trade cult. This is the cult of people that want to trade and want to talk. It's a great cult for people who want to do the talking role. It has the ability to communicate with so many people. It has a lot of initiate options. If you want to barter, it is fantastic for that. You can buy and sell rune magic, and so on and so forth. There's various types of priesthoods for you that are available. There's subservient.
I do like this point. For the merchant priest, you only need to donate 10% of your income.
That's right. Isseries is for everyone. Isseries is very chill with basically every other god because, well, he was the messenger of the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
He is the communicator. He invented a special language that can be taught and taught to everyone easily. It is the widest known second language across the world. He also created mules.
Because, well,
mules are to horse people. They're horses. To those who don't like horses, they're not horses. Therefore, they're good for everyone, and he can sell them to everyone.
And there are a few subservient cults and other aspects, like there's the spare grain god that is involved. His cult spirits tend to be those that aid in communications and roads. There's also raw greed. That's his spirit of reprisal.
Yes. Where basically you will get a greed gem instead, and if you pick up that gem, you get attacked by a spirit.
And then there's Harold Goodward, which is his mythical son.
Then next up we have Lankor Mai, the knowing god.
The knowing god, aka us nerds.
I like that I love the depiction of him in this because he's very clearly based on Kung Fu Ji.
Yes. There's another
He's
picture
either based on Kung
more...
Fu Ji or oh man, what's the guy who created the Lao Tzu? Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu, the founder of the Tao.
Lankor Mai, basically, why Lankor Mai went into the underworld was to get laid, because the light of knowledge was taken down into the underworld as part of Yum's cult, and he wanted to go see her again.
Yep, this is also a dude who legitimately had to try to untangle the truth.
Yeah, this cult cannot lie. That is one of their oaths, basically, is that they cannot write down a lie if they a knowing untruth. They are very, very, very good scribes. He has a few other names, but the most famous one being Busarian. He's technically also part of the Sky Pantheon. It's just that he's associated with the Lightbringers because he was on a Lightbringers quest.
Yep, he was also in Yelm's court.
Yep. He's actually the child of two of the Celestial court members, which were the ones that held both truth and stasis, so that's why those are his runes.
Also, if you're wondering, his otherworld home is a literal ivory tower, which is very fitting.
Yes, it's very fitting. The cult hates
There's
chaos.
Also the fact that he knows writing.
Yes, writing is his big thing. If you are a member of this cult, you must know how to read and write. That's a requirement. This isn't an option.
You can only use clean animal skins. You must write each column with no less than 48 and no more than 60 lines. use only black ink of the proper recipe, verbalize each word aloud while writing, only write truth, store documents only in sacred places, and never destroy a document written by the cult.
Oh,
Sacrificed to Lancor Mai not counted.
Oh, no, it's even funnier than that. So before I talk about the funny thing, there's also different elements of society that you can find, although this is mostly for Nochet, which are based on different colors and what they do.
Oh yeah, the Great Library of No Shit is, if you want to have an entire campaign in a city, you could easily have it be that your adventuring party has been hired by various factions of the Great Temple of No Shit to bring back specimens for their research
And it's really
and
fun.
stories. And there's a bunch of these groups that are seeking lore from everywhere that you could get involved with. It is basically the academic campaign where you are playing a bunch of nerds having an argument. Well, no, you're playing the people that are working for a bunch of nerds having an argument over who was right about some obscure factoid 20 years ago.
By the way, the reason I also am loving that it's basing itself on more of a Chinese philosophy with his depiction is they actually have something similar to the administration exams that Confucian scholars have to go through to actually even become a member. You have to
Well,
pass
yeah,
a basic intelligence test. It's an
yeah.
actual administration
He's
exam.
he's the knowing god. That's why this is the god of scribes and everything. If you can't know shit, get the fuck out.
Which leads to you could legitimately have a crazed, illuminated nightmare dude based on based on Hong Shui Quan.
Yeah.
I am the brother of Orlanth.
You see him wearing cat ears. He thinks he's Yinkin born in the flesh.
They also are unique among the Lightbringers in that they teach sorcery naturally because Link or Mai just knows it. It's limited sorcery teaching, but you can in fact be given that. A very limited
You
number
also
of
have to
spells, but
sacrifice your
hey,
personal magic rather than tithing to aid the cult.
right?
As well as burn documents in some cases, because, well,
Yeah, you've written a document, you can write it again.
I do like his spirit of reprisal. The Brain Flayer. It
Yeah,
reduces your intelligence by 1 every 4 weeks until they either make recompense or die.
I also really love this other depiction of Lancor Mai. I love that they showed the different cultures that they show up in. This is great.
yep. They also are traditionally expected to wear, at least the rune priests, they must have a beard. This is not an option. This is non-negotiable. You must have a beard. This means that female initiates are given metal beards to wear.
Which is a bit of a nod to Egyptian pharaohs because Hatshepsut actually had to wear a ceremonial beard as a pharaoh.
I know, it's still really funny. They also have
I
their own
love
funny
that.
hats and everything. It's great.
Now we have Barntar, the Plow God.
He
He was
he
beloved
has
by the
plow
yeah.
and plowing accessories.
Barntar is basically the storm god that is worshipped whenever you can't directly worship Orlanth, because it's very easy to become part of the Orlanth cult through the Barntar cult. It's really easy. You just spend a point of power.
You'll
And I
also
do like
probably
this.
find them a lot in regions the Lunar Empire conquered as a way to hide your worship.
And I do like this,
Exactly.
that while he's taken green goddesses as lovers, he's married to Mahome, the Hearth goddess, who
The
is
Hearth
also related
goddess.
to the Sky cult.
Yes, because well, she's one of the low fires. Uh, well, fires, the fires that work in the house. This next guy is great though. This is one of the more interesting cults of this book, in that it offers you a lot of opportunities for both roleplay and for I want to be the spooky dude.
Dakafal. This one is fun. He's the judge of
I
the dead.
love this cult. It's a very flavorful cult for something like this.
I love how he's depicted as rather than a skeleton. Like this take on the psychopomp is your reflection. You.
Yep. This is because before time he didn't exist before the greater darkness. The reason why is he is grandfather mortal after he died.
Oh,
This is why he is the god of the dead and the judge of the dead. He was the first to die.
Literally,
He
Eurmal
knows the
stabbed him.
routes. He knows where to go. Well, no, Humok stabbed him, but Eurmal was the one that gave him the sword.
Yeah, Dakafal's art is really good. It's just so creative.
He set the living from the dead. He taught the burial rites. He taught them how to keep the dead appeased and how to communicate,
Which, yes,
and how to
that's a
talk to your
thing.
ancestors.
That is a thing. The Orlanthi legitimately one of the roles a Lancor my priest might have to do is actually negotiate with angered ancestors over an accidental slight that was forgotten due to tribal
Yeah,
land
his
shifting.
cult is not friendly towards many deities for very specific reasons. Namely that remember a deity killed him. They're also kind of suspicious because you're not worshiping your ancestors. What the fuck is wrong with you? But mind you, everybody does in some way, shape, or form, usually in Glorantha. The main thing about Dakafal, though, is that his ancestor worship is stronger. It's a route to shamanism, which is a very powerful thing you can be in Runequest. Shamans are very powerful. There's stupid shaman tricks that you can just make everything work with.
And as
You
for how cults of Dakafel usually form or fall, it's usually in the aftermath of the gods failing to succeed or due to a crisis, and it just kind of develops over time.
right,
Because if the gods can't really succeed here, our ancestors could, and that usually leads to this.
right. There are usually only a few priests of Dakafal. In any given tribe or clan, because it's very rare to decide to dedicate yourself this fully to the ancestors. And the initiation as well is different than most others. It can be basically anyone can theoretically join the cult. You just have to be related to the person who is initiating you. And this can be as distant as Grandfather Mortal. All previous cult connections must be severed. You have no other lord but Dakafal, because, well, the ancestors are your lords now. The spirits are. You
Also,
are
this is a
dealing with
fun
them.
nod to because there's two people that that cultists of Dakafel dislike, and one of them is Death.
Well, yeah, he's a fucking asshole.
Which is interesting because one of the things Humakta did was to sever his ties to wield it. It's just an
Right, but
interesting reflection of that.
right, but then there's a couple of examples of ancestor cults which are actually very interesting. There's the cult of Bisenlib, the long-legged goddess, ex-wife of Shargash. She's the heron goddess, if I remember correctly, and she's affiliated with a few other things. It's a very good example of a regional ancestor cult. The cult is linked to other cults which give it extra spirit magic, and that's kind of how you bring in more magic into Dakafal's cult, is that it's stuff related to deeds of ancestors and heroes and goddesses and gods, which is why he actually gets along with Yinkin.
Nito makes a good point about what would they think about people who don't remember their ancestors.
Oh, they'd be like, you can fuck off. We'll bring them back to haunt you until you do.
Which they can do, by
Uh,
the way.
yes, they have ancestral summons. So as long as they have an ancestral link to you, they can bring back the dead. And
And
remember,
even if
this
it's
is a cult that
spurious, you are connected to Grandfather Mortal.
right. They have domain over you. They can call one of their ancestors who can talk to one of your ancestors to then go and haunt you if
I
you really
imagine though
want
the
to go that far.
difficulty, yeah, I imagine the difficulty though would be pretty high.
Oh yeah, for sure. But the point being that this is a route to shamanism that's a bit easier than the standard route, but it's much more limited in terms of like how I would put it, your focus. Your focus is not on greater deities and spirits of like the world around you. No, you're specifically focusing yourself on the dead and dealing with the ancestors and how that's connected. Oh, by the way, one of the great festivals of Bisenlib is the Great Sex Hunt.
The
Just
what?
thought I'd mention that.
Well, there's
The
also the
great
cult of Slib, which is the heron goddess.
yes, the Great Sex Hunt, an epic 3-day fertility festival that occurs every year in the city of Dorkath.
Thus, our present penetrates many aspects of their society. I just had to read that since we covered that.
Speaking of hunting, next up is Found Child.
Oh no, you forgot about Votank. Votank is another example of one of the other subsidiary cults.
Votank is of the Balzarings, which are great. I love the Balzarings. They are this group of Stone Age tribesmen that live just north of Tarsh. And you can go visit them. They love dogs, and they don't even know that they're called the Balzarings. They call themselves the Votanki. Because Balzar was a hero in the Second Age that popped up and said, "I'm king of this land now," and these cavemen basically went, "Ooh, shiny man," and followed him. They're fun. I like them. Their main god is actually the next god on this list, Found Child.
He was discovered during the Great Darkness, so after death came into the world, and he learned how to struggle and survive, and he used death in order to ensure people's survival.
And feed people. So he is the one that he's friendly towards a lot of cults, actually. It should be interesting to note which ones he is.
I found where you came up with the idea for Happy Hunting Ground for the Native Americans.
It's right there.
There it is.
Though the Happy Hunting Ground has been like a thing for a bunch of that bullshit. Anyway, Found Child's cult is very small, very focused. His rune magic isn't very impressive, but it's definitely a cult you could play if you're wanting to play someone that's like, "Hey, I'm a hunter."
Yeah, if you really want to go and do that ranger grind, like you're really D&D brained, you could use this as your deity.
This multi-cult into that Yinkin and Nodalia, and then just go for it. At that point, you're kind of making it out, because there's no restriction on you being a shaman either, so you could just become a shaman and say, fuck it.
He's also very friendly with Brother Dog.
Yes, he in fact teaches the skill Understand Dog, and the rune spell Command Conquer Beast, which is really cool, by the way.
By the way, the restrictions, aka taboos, means you have to at least have some skill with missile weaponry. You have to at least know how to use something to kill, to hunt. You also must never show fear of an animal or steal another's catch.
Yeah,
especially
that's for the Rune Lord level stuff, but still.
Then we have,
and they do have Spirits of Reprisals.
Yes, they do.
He essentially covers you in fox piss.
Yes. Then we get Gagarth and his fucking rad steed here. Look at this thing.
Yeah, Gagarth is insane.
The Wild Hunter. He rides a demon steed that gallops on air, land, or sea, and is armed with a long-reaching barbed spear. He's the third son of Umoth. Or no, he is the child of...
He's one of the winds, and if I recall correctly, he's also known as the Foul Wind or the Most Wild Wind.
Well, he's also known as, effectively speaking, the bandit god, because that's effectively what his cult is.
He is the god of senseless violence, as opposed to the Stormbull, whose brutal destruction is never without purpose.
Basically, if a player rocks up to your Runequest game saying, "Yeah, I worship Gagarth," kill him on sight.
He has no lay members.
Mods, obliterate this man's penis.
Yeah. Send him to Mr. Electric.
The temple has no formal organization. It's also no lay membership. You can't half-ass your devotion to this guy. It's either you're all in or you're out.
And you must be an outlaw, exiled from Waha and Aranth, and from Orlanth and the Lightbringers. This is not a problem since most candidates are already outlaws.
Right. You are a bandit. Yeah. This is what this is. You usually are someone that hates a bunch of shit, and you don't get much out of this. I'll be completely honest. This cult sucks to belong to.
If you,
well, I do want to bring up the Whirlvishes. They're the souls of people caught by the Wild Hunt while lost on the Chaparral, which blends the sort of Polish concept of the Wild Hunt.
Yeah, the Germanic concept of Wild Hunt with.
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, looking at Gagarth, he's based on the concept of the huntsman ghost, which is the spectral
the Wild Hunt
with like he's very, very Germanic inspired.
And in general, though, in general, you don't You don't want to. If you go back to your society after initiating to this guy, by the way, the Wild Hunt will come for you.
Yep.
But next up is
Heller is, aka the femboy.
Heller has
not-
the magical ability to swap, and also the priests sometimes can become priestesses, and vice versa.
Because, well, water,
It's water.
Water is the life giver and the life taker, fierce or calm, tranquil or raging. Water is mother and father. He's sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes neither, and is usually referred to gender neutral.
If you're wondering, this is also one of the 6 sexes of Orlanthe culture.
Hellerlings, basically those that flop between gender roles and sexual concepts.
Yep, there's man,
including
woman,
especially
Vingan,
the
Hamdan, Hellerite, and then none.
Because none is basically like your eunuchs, your dwarves, the things that the Orlanthe can't categorize, and those that just refuse to play by the rules anyway. Like the best way to put it is that like if you can be just declared by none because you're just like, all right, fuck this shit, I don't care about any of this. Okay, you're none, got it. Checking that down.
Is the Wild Hunter steed their child? I don't think so.
No, it's not that.
I think he just stole it.
Probably stole it. Heller is interesting in that Heller is sometimes a war god, but in general, one of the more interesting ones that they note about the mythos and history is that Heller's gender and sex will switch inside of the same myth and telling. So Orlanth is often considered, by the way, at least one tale tells of an affair between the Blue God and Orlanth's wife. Another tells of an affair between Orlanth and Heller. So I guess they're a thruple with Ernalda. Which sort of makes sense because Heller is often considered a subcult of Orlanth in many places.
You know, you're thinking about that, and here's my rebuttal that I think is hilarious. You have the thruple, and they're all currently women.
Oh.
Or all men, because they could be.
And then Eurmal tries to sneak in.
Oh no.
Sneak in as the chick.
Eurmal is ruining the polycule.
I mean, that is something Eurmal would do, let's be honest.
Yeah. What's that one Dagoth voice text with the polycule?
Nerevar. You have to leave the
Nerevar, we've discussed this with the other members, and I think it is time for you to leave the polycule.
Well, actually, I was thinking of the "It Was Me" Barry reverse flash shit, where it's like, remember when you got your dick flattening Orlanth? It was me. I swapped our dicks.
Heller has a few restrictions. Can't learn fire magic. No surprise.
No shit. Water deity.
Yeah.
The spirit of reprisal is spirit of drought. If an initiator rune master of Heller breaks their cult's vows, the river priest can ritually withdraw Heller's blessing from the culprit's area.
By the way, here's an example of Heller swapping right there, just to show.
Yep.
I think you can see because I forget the one on the left symbol. That is water.
Water, yes. And on the right is motion, which is the rune of change. Orlanth shares this rune as well, along with air with Heller, which is kind of an interesting little note there. And then we get Humacht, one of the OG gods that Greg came up with. Like, Humacht actually came before Orlanth.
This is the least schizo mythology I've ever heard.
Well, yeah, Humacht basically was split eventually when he realized that the storm and death god being the same god didn't make as much sense.
I love the skulls with the sword symbols, aka the crosses on them.
Yeah, that's the death rune, because death was a sword that he used to slay Grandfather Mortal. That's why it's a cross. And it also happens to repel vampires. Because it's the death rune.
So Humacht has maintained the position of Bringer of Death throughout recorded time. He is the war god of much of the world and can be found on both sides of any major conflict. And he resides in the House of Death at the bottom of the measureless cliffs of Shadow and Second Hell.
He is sometimes simply called Death, so yeah. Dakafal fucking hates this guy just as much as the sword he wields.
Again, bring up Elden Ring again. a god taking on the rune of death and separating themselves from the rest of society and putting it in a sword?
Why are you trying to say that this thing is ingenious? They stole it from a cracked out shaman who made it in a shed in the 70s. You
Now, to be
frauds.
fair, this was mostly in the 80s. Also, you should see younger Greg. I would fucking do like the most weed with that dude. He looks yeah, it would be a great time.
Reminder, the reason the Mostali are the way they are was he watched psychotic, distressed, and horrified computer programmers learning about how rapidly their industry was shifting.
Yeah.
He saw them reacting to that and said, you know, I could probably base dwarves on that.
So, for instance, within the lay membership of Humacht, you have a code of honor, which requires members to always fight fairly.
Also, if you're wondering,
with other members.
Humacht tend to be some of the most organized. As a war deity,
Yeah.
no shit, they are very highly regimented and
They're
organized.
a way to put it is not really that. Humacht is like the god of warriors, mercenaries and units. He's not a god of soldiers. His whole thing is the personal aspect of your personal honor and fighting and discipline.
My rebuttal to this is, let me read this section. They have a rigid temple structure. Each forms a warrior society headed by the chief sword. They are organized among military lines with a chief sword, known as the battle leader, and the 10 swords or initiates, known as 100 thanes. Each has up to 10 initiatives or lay members, known as the 10 thanes, and each 10 thane leads up to 10 warriors. That, for the era that we're working with, is very highly regimented, especially for an Orlanthe group. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Compared to me and the lads raiding cattle, yeah, that's quite organized by comparison.
Oh yeah, no, look at the image of
Yeah, with the city.
He very much has a Shiva energy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well,
Shiva with Kali.
No shit.
Also, I believe this is. Oh yeah, this also has his expression here actually reminds me. There's a Southeast Asian demon known as the Rangdan. He has kind of a Rangda face.
Well, death is supposed to have a horrible visage.
I love it.
And funny enough, he also has gifts and gases, like
yeah, oaths of behavior in exchange for power. Well, Yomalio has them as well. They're the two deities that really give them out.
I like some of them, such as immune to all fear effects.
Because
really powerful.
Death is to be something you face.
3 gases, but you have no fear.
Right. Also, but mind you, this is because a starting. All right, this is crazy, but I've done the mathematics. It's theoretically possible to get a starting Humakti up to about 400%, 500% sword skill.
If your dice at least play fair round. With you.
If your dice play fair with you, you can get up to that level due to various skill boosting and things like that.
However, conversely, nuts. Their taboo is you are dead. Once you are dead, you must move on. You are of the warrior of death. You have tasted it. You must stay dead.
Right.
They cannot be
your
resurrected.
Corpse cannot be resurrected. However, upside, you also can't become a vampire, mummy, zombie, or skeleton,
which is extremely useful.
They have the swords. One of their famed cults is that of he, a swordsman, who is a one-armed Humakti among the Grayslanders, which is kind of wild considering he was running around on foot with people with horses, keeping up with them with one arm.
This isn't the Yoruba. It's an African culture. I've seen this before. This is an African. What's the art period? It's not Nok. I think it's after Nok. It's essentially essentially a Bronze Age era that you can find in West Africa. I think it might be Yoruba, like early Yoruba art.
And it's definitely based on he, a swordsman, because it's only got one arm. So the dude ran around with a crazy ass mohawk too. What a Chad!
And you get the strong blade ability, which makes a sword or a dagger unbreakable.
Very powerful.
Which is unbreakable.
Yeah.
This is the cult also, that would crucify you. No, they would just kill you.
The cult has one universal spirit of reprisal, which is Humacht himself. The gifts of those who become apostate or did not live up to the codes of the cult are removed, while their geases remain. Any cultist who breaks one of their geases, even unwittingly, is cursed. Whenever such an individual picks up a weapon, it instantly shatters.
While that is bad, I do realize this. You could get this guy to go into, let's say, a lunar garrison and just touch all of the swords.
That would be dishonorable, but yes.
Well, they're already broke, but then doing so, they'll die in the attempt.
Here's the thing, though. Humacht is at least fair. It targets the weapon they are most skilled with. You still have a chance.
Right. In any case, the others, this guy, Li Fangquan, this warrior from Kreloria, fought for the Empire of the Worm's Friends during its heyday. In a famous journey across the wastes of Gennert, he destroyed all the undead of the wastes and wounded the chaos god Vivamort. So there is just some random ass Chinese swordsman doing Dynasty Warrior shit over in Prax during the Second Era.
Also, if you're wondering, there is the Humakti duel. The nature of the code of Humacht is such that arguments, discussions, or any disagreement can be settled by a non-fatal, hopefully, duel.
Essentially, this feels very Orlanthy.
Well, yeah. It's not just Orlanthy, it's universal. You have to both be lay members of Humacht minimum. Thus, they must know the honor passion. It is to the first fallen, the first who drops to the ground or drops their weapon.
Basically, whoever surrenders first.
And Humacht's sword has become the universal symbol of the ultimate end of things. Some religions have become so totally absorbed with the concept of death and their fear of dying. They have redefined the meaning of Humacht's weapon and revere it as a symbol of hope, eternal afterlife, and peace. I wonder
Once
where
initiated,
they came up with that.
By the way, the sword is always shiny. No exceptions. Always shiny.
I kind of love that.
Next up is Lanbril. Lanbril is a very interesting cult because he is effectively a hero who apostatized.
He's a son of Grandfather Mortal. He was rejected as inferior because his father was killed by death. And he was enraged by that and said, well, if I'm inferior, so be it. I'll excel at my own and be cherished because of it.
Mortal, his whole thing is, fuck you, got mine. He is the god of thieves. Like, you know how Eurmal is a thief and all that? No. Eurmal is little baby compared to Lanbril.
Lanbril stole personal runes of gods. Just because he could.
He has unique spirit magic, too.
He invented magic.
Also, if you're wondering, his cultists actually believe it's due to this guy getting so fuck-ass mad at gods that Eurmal was able to actually even steal death from Humacht.
Well, no, Humacht didn't have death at that point.
No, Lanbril's mad influence permeated the world. Some devout cultists go so far as to state this is this influence that inspired
Orlanth steal, not Eurmal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No records of his cult exist in the First Age. In the Second Age, governors of the Middle Sea Empire often complained of an elusive god of thieves to explain discrepancies in tax rolls.
In reality, they were just embezzling.
Well, no, his cult is very secretive, is the thing.
You say that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it even formed because of this as an excuse at first.
I also do like this. Lanbril supports any established legal or economic order which permits proper conditions for his cult. Therefore, most rings will not work as revolutionary agents against an established hierarchy. Most thieves are vocally patriotic and will defend their tribe or town against enemies. Listen, my town is shit, but that's because I can steal from them.
No. Look, it's legitimately. Look, I may be a crook, but at least you know what I can say. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not a puppet of the Lunars.
It's also that he also is an organized crime, which is funny considering one of his runes is disorder, but that's because of the selfish nature of his crimes. In general, organized crime is something he wants to do and have, which is wild. Like, genuinely. but he
and a
gets some
revolution
really
kind of messes that up.
yeah. His genuinely his skills are pretty useful for lay members. His initiate membership is much more intense. Basically, put you need to give up if any other cults. Nope.
The
Lambrel doesn't like the other
yeah,
gods.
I do like this. Groupings of rings are usually called families, and the groups must stay together for a long time or break up immediately after the job is done. Certain lines of Lambro priests have maintained criminal families over generations, even centuries. All this is making me want to do. I want to roleplay The Sopranos.
You could easily do the
I mean,
Sopranos out of no shit.
this is legitimate. It's kind of interesting that this is the direction they kind of went with making the mobs, like making your mafia slash yakuza slash triads. It's kind of weird. This is the direction they went with for this. Because I actually
mean,
think no. Here's the weird thing. I actually think it's a little less interesting than if you covered some of the weird shit
Hmm.
that resulted in those crime families.
Wait, no, Joe. A female rune priest wouldn't happen in Dragon Pass. It's a Sopranos reference.
Also from Donald
anyway,
Roche, does he still have the ducks? Yeah, the Duruls are still in here.
yeah.
You can
Well,
play
they're
them.
in a different book. You can play them. They're playable. Lambrel also gets a bunch of unique skills.
Fake death. You can go full hognose snake and just flop over dead. Blech.
Yep, foil restraints, shadowing, streetwise, thieves argot, and the most interesting one to me at least is voice mimicry. You can actually completely imitate someone else if you wanted to.
So a fun
And
take
it
on
would
Lambrel.
avoid
Okay.
all magical detection.
Okay, hear me out. Instead of going The Sopranos, here's my next great idea. Lambrel circle of essentially the fucking Yautja.
I was thinking Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 11? No, I'm thinking going full Predator.
I don't know if Predator would work.
It would. Murder hobo. You murder hobo. It's
Hmm.
essentially you form a thuggy cult.
Or like Assassin's Creed.
That too.
That's more of the Black Fang Brotherhood, which is a spirit shaman cult, sometimes associated with the Lambrel cult.
What are you
Most of the
talking about?
Lambrel
Organized
cults.
crime deals with murder all the time. Case in point,
Yes,
Murder
they
Inc.
do. Yes, they do. But the most of those murder cults are more related to other deities or spirits. Lambrel's about thievery. He's not necessarily about just.
It's still robbery, even if it is
I-
dead.
I do want to know. I do like his one of his special rune magic, divination block. Obscures the
Yes.
history of the activities up to 12 individuals associated with one definable material object for a period of up to 12 hours. Remember how we were talking about with Blades in the Dark of trying to get out of, whenever you're sealing something with a hot item? This would be perfect.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Also, from Sean Helton, what about playing as a red goddess worshiper? So the Lightbringers don't cover the red goddess, but she does have a book, and you can easily be
She has
a
her own
Balorian
book.
worshiper.
It's actually harder to get into her cult than you'd think. Next
It's
up is
harder to,
Masticos.
but being a layperson is quite trivial.
Well, that's the Seven Mothers cult, which is the first step towards joining the Red Goddess and understanding the world. Masticos, very simple. He's just the charioteer god of movement. He holds the movement rune. His coolest spell is that he allows you to meld the form with something and transform into it.
Oh, I
So
love
you
that.
can
I
become a
love this
dinosaur.
demented triskeleton that they use as his depiction.
Yes. Masticos is kind of great.
So you become a fucking transformer.
Yes. You can legitimately become a transformer into like a dinosaur. As long as you have a living creature of the type desired is provided, which will take 6 hours, and then you become that creature and you can just turn into that creature.
And you can form it multiple times.
I'm just envisioning you straight up because fuck it, you go full Godzilla, you just take the largest dinosaur.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, you'd probably owe a big favor to the Marin Gore cult, but yeah, you could become a dinosaur.
No, can you con a dragon?
Now you're thinking.
No, that's the obvious.
No,
that's
wait,
the
that's what
obviously no.
That's what happened in the dragon kill.
I mean, you could probably
He
do
just
it
turned
with a
into a
dream
human.
dragon.
And his name is Argrath.
That's earlier. That's way earlier. Argrath. Dragonkill War is like 600 years after he's dead.
Oh.
Uh,
But yeah, the Lunar
Sky
Empire
Bear?
book's great if you're a big fan of the Red Lady and the Red Emperor and stuff
The
like that.
Lunar Empire one might be the one we cover next because it includes actual history on the Lunar Empire because it's very tied into the Pantheon. Kind of has to be. Anyway, Odalia, the Sky Bear. Basically what you think it is. It is the Orlanthi wilderness god and hunter god. And his general thing that he does is kill a bear, wear a bear skin, go kill people as a magic bear shaman.
He has a special rune. It's called Two Bears High-Fiving.
Exactly.
He also brought Orlanth back to life with the power of bear, so you know.
Yeah. Then you get Stormbull, and Stormbull's great. I fucking love Stormbull. Stormbull's whole story is basically like everybody was like, okay, Umath's children. There's Humat who's doing really well. There's Kolat who's got the wins. There's Ragnar who we don't talk about because he got into the sex pit. And there's Orlanth who's such a mischievous scamp. And then there's Stormbull. And Stormbull is like
purpose in existence is to just beat the shit out of things that deserve it.
Like everybody was like, "Oh, Stormbull, who could Stormbull do? He's nothing." So give him to Gennert. Gennert will put him in some pasture. He's the big retard kid, you know. What could go wrong? And then it turns out that Stormbull is actually violence incarnate.
Father, I crave violence. that is his existence.
He may have started the Great Darkness because Lodril.
He gored Lodril, yes, and sent him back into the underworld. He destroyed large sections of the continents. He killed many gods just because they came near him.
However,
he killed a mountain.
He also, it's not just him. His followers did a lot of shit too, like killing all of the vegetation in an area by fucking eating it, which is one of the reasons he doesn't get along well with elves.
Oh, and then his brother Ragnar came, and he fucking murdered him.
I mean, he came back, but...
Well, yeah, I'm saying he still ended up murdering him. He beat the shit out of him. Ragnar comes back with chaos and is like, haha, now he just gets trampled to fucking death by Stormbull.
And then he kills the devil. He kills Blackback the devil.
Well, he fought, let me put it like this, alone, he fought the devil to the point where the only thing that stopped their fight was a chunk of the exploded spike landing on top of the devil and sending him into the underworld.
Essentially, Stormbull screamed finish at him. Like incomprehensibly angry Finnish noises. Vita tu Santana! And then fucking plants him into the earth.
Yeah,
he also sometimes moonlights as a guy in a green suit of armor murdering demons.
He just does that because he wants to. He rips and tears until it's done.
The violence has escalated, is basically the nature of the Stormbull cult.
So you have chosen violence. You always choose violence because it's the only solution.
Stormbull is also
basically Stormbull is basically the big burly simple man with a hammer, and he sees everything as a nail.
It's all chaos in some way, and they'll sense that chaos and they will fucking kill it. That's their job. That's what they do. They are berserkers bar none. They are almost, and remember this. Here's a direct quote from the book here. Societally, they are unacceptable. They characteristically act with total disregard for any tribal taboos or manners, even to the extent of occasional murders which will go unavenged. Normal people consider all worshippers of this cult to be mindless brutes, barely human, certainly deranged, and absolutely dangerous. These opinions are correct.
And this is also why my Eurmal divine clown actually had to play sane man.
But the necessity of the warrior overrides the temporary discomfort the people must suffer to have Stormbull worshippers around in peacetime. While most men fear chaos, these seek it out, and that alone makes normal people respect them.
So, like, let's say you're just kind of enjoying your midday snack, your midday snack of pita bread and like a vinegar drink, and you hear cows going full John Carpenter's The Thing because they got raped by Bruce. You might shit your pants and fall over and cry. The crazy Stormbull who randomly murdered half of your chickens 2 months ago runs in screaming, kills all of them, and saves your life and what's left of your farm after burning down half of it.
And doesn't really ask for anything.
They don't.
He's just
Stormbolt
happy that he
hates
got
all
to kill something.
his hates dislikes. It's really simple. Hates all chaos. Don't like it. Dislikes anything that does not conform to their crude and simple demands and worldview.
Basically,
Which is
total chaos
that's a
death.
bit of a problem for the Red Goddess.
Oh yeah, he's banned. He is completely banned in the Lunar Empire.
He is 100% the band.
Because he will try to kill everybody.
Oh no. The Stormbull in the group that I played the Divine Clown in. No, he was perfect. He brought all sorts of insane things. That was perfect. It was really fun to play off of the guy. The only time that things got to a head was when he volunteered out of nowhere to have us build a bridge for a Mustali without getting paid.
I had no idea why he did that. I was just like, what the fuck?
It led to the great moment of the trickster Divine Clown having to play Snitch, which is something that you don't usually expect.
Now, the next section of this is all of his stuff. He
Also,
has a special
this is
skill.
a beautiful rendition of the Storm Bull, and this is the last thing everyone who sees this picture will see before you die.
Yeah, there's also a cute little bull statue.
I love it.
It's adorable. That's like something that you'd see at like a little shrine somewhere for him.
And
Or like
anyone who is join the cult requires that candidates not be tainted by chaos, that they be armed with magical weapons, be willing to follow the orders of their superiors, and pay 10 clacks to the priest accepting them.
By the way, one of their holy sites is the Eternal Battle, where you just fight forever.
Well, it's a never-ending
It's a hole in
storm
time.
inside of Prax, which is a hole in time, and it is literally a gigantic sandstorm of doom that is always raging across the wastes to represent the fact that, well, that's where Stormbolt and the Devil were. That's how they were fighting. It was a goddamn nightmare zone.
But by the way, Storm Bulls are not always completely insane. Lay members are not actually required to fight them. They do have to at least stand by.
Though any chaos is all chaos, is a proverb of this cult.
Initiates a Storm Bowl, though, you get Sense Chaos, you get some other fun rune magic. You get the spell Berserker, which is already fucking insane, as can be also attested by my group.
Yeah, we left him to go rampage against the Manticore until he passed out because
there
were
like 3 Manticores. He absolutely brutally murdered one in a single round and chased the other 2 off because they're like, okay, nope, fuck this.
Well, that was also because my Divine Clown was able to deflect their fear spell back on their leader.
Didn't we also rip its dick off as proof of its kill?
No, its head.
Well, yeah, it was his head, I think. Was it the head or the stinger? I can't remember which.
It was either the Poljoni or the Storm Bull that suggested the dick, I think.
I think it was the
maybe the Eurmal clown. Maybe it was me. I could totally see the character.
That party was too pure for this world.
It was basically the strongest runes that party had were air, which is very disorderly, disorder, which is very disorderly. No chaos, because the Storm Bull would have killed them all.
Listen, we would have caused the destruction of Pavis by the end of that campaign.
No, we would have been publicly executed by the end of that campaign. We would be publicly executed, and we would deserve it.
I mean, the one time you guys get arrested, you attempt the Storm Bull attempts to start a jailbreak by throwing poop at the guards. So,
and we love him for it.
Who's next? Is it Valand? It's Valand. Valand is the winter god.
The god of winter.
I love that style and profile that he has. Also, I love the depiction of frostbite that this dude has.
It's frostbite, but it also looks like it's fur in some way.
Yeah, I like the take. It's really clever.
So, Varus had many children, all destructive and most hated, such as Valen, Gargath, and Milani. Valen was strongest and most treacherous of his father's children. When Vadris was conquered, Valen swore loyalty to Orlanth and took possession of his father's palace. Three swords blanketed the world, and together they created the great ice sheet called Valad's Glacier. He always tried to claim more than what was his, and often forced Orlanth to fight to prove his right to lead the Storm Gods.
By the way, if you're wondering, in King of Dragon Pass, you can actually pick your ancestral enemy. You can actually pick Valand as your ancestral enemy. Other options include the Trollkin, the trolls, the Eldriami, because of the guy who got shot by them, and Prax. You can pick Prax as your ancestral enemy.
And when Orlanth left on Lightbreaker's Quest, Valand still was around the world and just trying to fuck things up. Until he was beaten back by Kidlikos Icebreaker, which shattered the huge glacier,
Essentially, he is a hungry god. It doesn't matter. But in short, he is Father Winter. He is the guy who brings winter. Frost God is usually bad god because if it's too long a winter, you fucking die.
Yeah, Icebreaker ended up moving more and more north, but eventually Valen was victorious, and from there on marked the lands to the north as impassable ice.
Interesting note. The Lunars have been doing a hero quest for the last 3 centuries or so, recreating Calculus's deeds to keep the Lunar Empire relatively nice all year round. Valand knows this, and he is not happy about it. So guess what happens the first time they fail?
Eternal winter.
Not eternal winter, but one of the worst winters on record during a bunch of other disasters. It is not fun to be in the Lunar Empire after the Dragon Rise.
So one of the things is you can worship Valand. He's mostly worshipped as a way to get him off your back.
But here's the thing: he does teach us the ability to skate and ski.
On top of that, despite him having a somewhat hostile relation with Orlanth and especially with the Lunars, he's not like many deities. He's more like Yelm in that he's an antagonistic force. He's not an evil force. He also loathes chaos because of its damage it can do.
He can also give you a rune scroll to decrease the temperature by 1d6 degrees Celsius.
Also, another fun thing about him is that him and Orlanth have a yearly fist fight just to keep themselves strong.
Also, interestingly enough, one of his major followers are a group of trolls that live on the glacier.
And in fact, there's an image of them murdering a mammoth.
Yeah. Then last but not least, we got 2 more in the book.
You have Waha.
Of the major gods, I would argue here,
we have the
Waha.
troll cult, which is fun. Yeah, Waha is critical. If you're playing in Prax, this is your guy.
He is the son of the Storm Bull and Irith. He was born at the end of the Gods' War, after his father had slain the devil and long after his mother was hidden on the earth.
I'm sorry, before we talk about it, give him like a really stupid shirt and like have him sit in a room and he looks like this. He just kind of looks like some loser you'd see that would do like 5-hour long terrible streams about like some dumb take on politics. He looks like a political streamer. I'm sorry, Waha. You look like the sort of person who would get like embarrassed on internet blood sports.
The Bull Liver King.
I'm sorry, Waha. Like, there's probably a better depiction of him.
He's got the hipster mustache. That's what it is.
That's the problem, yeah. And also the face. Like, I'm enlightened because I read Hugo and Locke and Marx. You don't understand. I actually have read Il Fascismo and can refute every point in it.
I swear to God, I'm gonna fucking punch you. Let's get moving here.
All right. So, Waha emerged from the earth to look upon a world of darkness, leering chaos, and he saw that people were dying of stupidity, wandering through a blasted land. So he taught them ways to live. He taught them how to survive. He tamed the world and returned it to order. He fought the wildfire god Oakfed and tamed it to be a friend of men. He cleansed the deserts of the presence of the devil. He used the earth power of his mother to dig a great canal through the earth, diverting a river to the place where the devil lay. He ordered the river and its creatures to devour the putrid being, and the river did.
Besides that, he also created the Survival Covenant, which is actually how the Praxian tribes became a thing.
Both animals and men agreed that this sacrifice is necessary for the survival of all.
And what
The
happened
men
was it was a contest between different types of animals and different types of men. In most cases,
Who eats? Who's eaten?
who gets their brain, who keeps their mind as well. There is one
and
tribe of men who lost.
They are now the herdmen, and you can buy them, and they are a beast animal of Prax, and it is not considered weird to eat them. So never look. If a Praxian invites you over for dinner, don't look at the bones. I'm just saying, don't look at the bones. It's not cannibalism because they're not intelligent.
Just
They're
assume it's
technically
pork.
a different species, but
Just assume it's pork or veal.
just don't ask too many questions about where they got that stew meat.
And also, if they start laughing maniacally, probably don't eat it because there's something bad with the feed.
among civilized people, though, he's considered the patron god of butchers and leather workers.
Yep,
Because he knows how
Essentially,
to.
much like how you have kosher and halal, you use a priest of Waha to cleanse and ensure that this item that you're using is purified and safe.
Also, he's probably the best guy to handle to make Waktapai edible. Because you can make a Waktapai edible.
I would say that's actually the Eurmal cult because they have the Swallow Rune spell, which would kill a Waktapai and allow you to eat it.
Now there's recipes that use Waktapai.
That's true. I have no idea why, but you know.
Though, fun fact, Waha does not trust the Lightbringers, but he begrudgingly honors them because he wasn't there. He dislikes horses, for they are the animals of Yelm, the sun god, and are not of Erythia.
Yep,
Correct.
they're from a different lineage, so he doesn't trust them.
The other
Which
thing
is why when the
he
which is why
loathes,
when the Paul Joni show up, they ride horses and they're considered weird.
not just
A
weird,
bastard tribe, yeah.
they actually went to war with them and they lost. That's the only reason the Poljoni are still around. Waha also very much preaches for the peaceful cut. Basically, you have to properly butcher. You can't fuck it up, or else.
You know, like kosher or halal. In fact, I think that's exactly the best comparison.
It really is. But Waha also is unique in that he has rune lords, but he also has shaman priests. His rune priests are shamans, not standard rune priests.
Also, I do like that image with the various. I believe those are the herd animals.
Yep, which includes a herdman.
Yep, yeah, and the lizards.
Yep.
Is that a two-headed lizard?
Yes.
That's a two-headed lizard.
Fair enough.
You have to be of noble descent. They have to come. It can be thin, but it has to be present. You also have to awaken a fetch to become a shaman. You have to take on taboo. You cannot marry foreign women. You're not allowed to eat any meat on clay days. You cannot hunt birds, gather eggs, or sow. And you must make a pilgrimage to the Devil's Marsh and kill something of chaos.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of requirements for this. Waha's a neat cult, though.
There's also the Khan, or Rune Lord path. And depending on the tribe that you're from and the herding animal and riding animal you got, you could be known as the Impala Khan or Llama Khan.
I do like with the favored weapons of the different nomads.
Yeah.
That again with the Morakanth, their primary weapon is claw.
Also, they're
because they're
reprisal.
giant tapir people.
Also, you can ride an ostrich.
Yes, they are. They're, the rune of the reprisal spirit is the Borobo Nightmare. You have to fight it. It has 4d6 power. Have fun. Stormbull is often associated with this guy. There's also Eurethia.
Well, yeah, he's Stormbull's father. Sorry, he's Stormbull's son. Of course, he's associated closely with Stormbull.
Found Child. A Found Child taught Waha how to hunt.
Yep, and the Peaceful Cut.
Though next up is Yig, not the serpent god.
Yig is a fucking asshole. That's basically the legacy of him. He's Valen's brother. He's Valen's
he's
younger
also
asshole brother.
Yeah, he's the son of Vadris, and Vadris was a terrible father. Though, unlike most of the Vedruid, Yig's violence was not mindless, but always served his purpose. He fought alongside Orlanth against the powers of the sky and water, but also against Orlanth's friends and allies. So he's just a complete asshole to everybody.
Yeah,
he's an opportunist.
Yeah.
He's people are mostly fishermen, sealers, and whalers living on the islands off the coast of northern Frenella.
They're basically Vikings.
Specifically, the Wolf Pirates. The Wolf Pirates are the people that met up with Herrick the Berserk. If you know anything about Herrick the Berserk, you should know that any group that willingly invited Herrick to join them is probably very, very dangerous and doesn't care about what happens to people they don't like. Yig is untamed destruction in the destructive storm, basically. He leads a group of pirates and Viking-like people that, in fact, went on a circumnavigation of the world, by which I mean they went around the top of the cube that Glorantha is, and visited a bunch of islands and killed a bunch of people and stole a bunch of things because they are pirates.
Also, Yig, despite his violence, he at least sometimes listens to Orlanth, at least when it benefits him. So he's not always at loggerheads. It's just don't trust these guys. And Yig is often seen actually as a demon rather than a deity outside of the Orlanthi cults.
Yeah, because he's a fucking destructive figure that comes up with a bunch of people with ships that comes and burns your shit down and steals your stuff, rapes your woman, burns your fields, insults your crops.
Yeah, like you think Orlanth the Adventurous is an asshole? No, these guys.
Is the fact that the major temple to Yig is in a place called Skullport. That's a fucking Warhammer name.
A reminder, Warhammer Fantasy also has a deity that's basically the Lord of Pirates and Sharks.
Oh, he also takes blood sacrifices.
That's what I mean, is that, like, this would not be out of place in a Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game.
Then lastly for this book, we have Yinkin.
There he is.
The cat god.
He's great.
I love Yinkin. Yinkin's cult's great.
So, he's obviously had a loyalty with Orlanth Yinkin after, well, Yinkin accidentally kicked him out. When Stormbolt bullied Yinkin, Orlanth soundly humbled the bull with a lariat and a stick.
Yes, he did. Also, Yinkin's association with Orlanth has a lot to do with he protects those who failed their initiation tribes. You usually become a member of Yinkin's cult for a while to essentially tough it out as a survivor.
Unlike the other
basically, if you fail your coming of age ceremony, you're exiled.
You're exiled. You're technically an outlaw. But the fun bit about that is that if you survive that about a year as an outlaw, they'll let you back in because you've proven yourself as a Yinkin worshiper.
Because that was Yinkin's thing. Orlanth accidentally kicked him out. He came back.
Well, he went back to get him, but still.
Also, Yinkin is a wanderer by nature.
As we can see here with this image of the Earth Goddess.
That's Caro Finn, and you can see Orlanth and Yinkin there.
As babies.
There they are.
You can see Orlanth fighting Yinkin, Orlanth blowing Yinkin off the mountain.
Orlanth beating Stormbolt.
Yeah, and then a big thing of Yinkin there.
Yinkin's great. Look at him.
Yinkin is a minor cult. It's usually part of the Orlanth cult, but it's a fun one. It's also notable that it's a common ancestor cult. So this ties into Daka Fall. First off, cats are cute. And so Yinkin kind of got around during the god time.
Also, a lot of temples to Orlanth actually contain side shrines to Yinkin, where basically there will be a little wing in your village temple that you just allow cats to gather around, and just that's your Yinkin shrine.
Yep.
It's really cute.
And this is also the reason why Orlanthi have giant herding cats rather than dogs. It's because of Yinkin.
Any non-chaotic sentient being can join Yinkin's cult. It includes all the elder races, so you can actually have if you have a defective Mostali as a Yinkin cultist.
I am the cat girl. Ooh woo.
I'm just envisioning. I am the cat man, and he just has like this metal cat helmet that he wears at all times.
He's got the cat ear headphones.
As for an initiate, basically the reason if you fail your coming of age, you become a Yinkin cultist is because surviving a year alone is how you do it.
Yes, right, Soul Killer. Yinkin is just a wholesome boy.
Yeah, Yinkin's great. He's one of my favorite deities.
No spirit of reprisal, but priest can ask Orlanth to send spirits of reprisal. He allows you to transform into a big god, cat thing. You have friendship with Found Child, Caro Finn, and Inora, the half sister, which protects shadow cats from her cold, which is why shadow cats can move around in the winter and not care about it.
Also,
So that's
Carafin
fun.
helped you by teaching you to regrow your limbs.
Yeah, that's nice. And
Also,
that's the
if
book.
you're wondering, well, no, there's one last thing I want to talk about, the way that Yinkins is tied to Orlanth is he's tied to the adventurous cult, but he's also seen as Orlanth's magical aspect in some ways.
By some cultures, yes.
Because Yinkin sometimes isn't a sentient brother, sometimes he's more of a companion animal. Compared to Odin's two ravens of wisdom and foresight.
I could definitely see that.
And that is the entire book. It was definitely worth going through bit by bit.
This is what I would tier like highest tier. Like this is an amazing product. It is exactly what you want out of a book like this for deities.
This is an amazing book mainly because it is an excellent dungeon master or game master's resource. Even if you don't intend to really run a Runequest book or any adventures like that, it just teaches you how to workshop. It gives you great ideas on how to workshop your religions. It's really useful for that.
Because you can tell that everything is associated with each other, and that, let's say if you're looking at this from sort of an anthropological, not just saying, okay, these cults are real, you can clearly tell that it's like, this is related to the weather, this is related to people's relationship with animals.
Heller, for example, can be seen as an aspect of Orlanth, or maybe a little bit of Ronaldo. That's why they switches the genders. Or it could be, and also the gender switch might be a nod to Vinga.
Basically put, this is a excellent book for people who are even just curious about Glorantha because it goes directly into the thing that arguably underpins Glorantha the most of the setting, which is its mythology.
I think the thing though is if you're already there, this is kind of like talking about this book is the D&D killer. If you're already thinking about that, you already know about it enough to want it. And for that, yeah, it's excellent. From outside of the RuneQuest aspect, I would actually still argue it's an amazing book because if you really want to go into world building, like let's say you're doing a homebrew setting, hell, let's say for example you want to try to sell some stuff for old school role playing, like you're trying to sell your homebrew. You can use this as a reference guide to cook up how your religions work and intertwine with each other because you can just use the examples here and the point of view of how their devotees work. I would actually highly recommend this, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a psychotic divine clown who likes to read about the divine clown and the cat. All of these compendium books are pretty darn good, especially if you want materials to really try to figure out how to homebrew.
They're also useful as something you can just kind of directly port over into your D&D campaign if people don't know about this stuff.
Oh yeah, like a really cool one you can do is you can use aspects of these deities specifically to explain how the clerics work. Like, how do certain clerics work?
How do clerics work? Well, you see, when you become a cleric, you initiate into the cult of a god, and by initiating into that cult of a god, you take a fragment of that god's power with you. That's why you can cast spells, and why you need you to pray to renew that, because you're renewing your connection to a deity.
Well,
Boom,
it's not
done.
just that, but it also ties into, for example, you could have your Palerite worshippers take on aspects of Yelm's cult. I mean, Yelm wasn't really covered in this one, but an example, you could have your you can have your Pelorian priests, which, you know, Pelor, the Lord of the Sun, Yelm. If you want to have your thief god, I forget his name, Oladamara,
Lambro?
Oladamara. You could reference the thief god here, or if you're a particular asshole, Eurmal. You could use that as like your nods to how to cover your clerics. What would their taboos be? What would be things they can't do? What are high holy days for them? What type of routines and rituals do they do? It's really neat.
What's the reprisal from their god for betraying their vows?
Yeah, like
That's another
what
thing
if they
that's
fell?
often, yeah, that's not usually covered in D&D stuff as much. Like,
Well, they have
oh
falling,
no,
but it's usually the god's like, all right, I'm cutting it off. Why do that when, let's say, for example, you're playing one of the trade gods? You could just have like a reprisal spirit of the trade god, like a reprisal celestial, come in and kick their
the
ass.
art of the deal. Basically, you make the worst deals possible. You immediately go for whatever deal is offered. It doesn't matter what it is. That's your punishment from your god. Like, it's an actual punishment, not just, oh, you lost your magical powers. Like, you lost your magical powers and now you're cursed.
Let's say you want to refluff Hieronius, which is the Lord of Paladins. Let's say you want to make him more like Humacht. Well, you fell as a paladin for this guy, so every time you touch your favored weapon, your sword, it fucking breaks.
Until you make appeasement with him, yeah. Like, imagine that as your punishment for falling as a paladin. It isn't just like, oh, I lost my paladin powers and now I can become a blackguard or whatever the fuck. It's, I lost my paladin powers. My sword breaks anytime I pick it up. So I basically can't fight. And I have to go and seek atonement from my god, probably in a way that's going to be absolutely humiliating and difficult, as a reminder to never do this fucking again.
It also allows you to have goofy, crazy bandit murder cults. Like, imagine using Gagarth as like a weird, wild deity that you can find in some rural backwater. That's just due to the chaos of things. And you try to take them in and try to reform them, and then all of a sudden, a crazy ass ghost riding a spectral horse comes in to kill them as a shard of
Right,
the Great Hunt.
because they paid a price. They made an oath. It's broken. The hunt is coming.
Yeah, this isn't just
There's a
for Glorantha. You could totally refluff this stuff because it's almost all fluff. Like, you get
there's a
some
decent amount of
interesting
mechanics.
magic you can retool as like divine spells they can pick up, but
Some of them are great, like the hailstone spell, which is like, all right, so this is an Orlanth spell that basically is like, all right, it's raining stones,
that
like
is
sling
actually a
stones.
spell in D&D, by the way.
Yeah. There's a few other kind of fun ones like Windwalk, which is like, all right,
I'm
you're
just
just walking on the
envisioning
air.
you worship the dickhead god of winter just so you could, like, check this out. You pull out a wineskin, cool it down by like 10 degrees Celsius. It's literally just a party trick that you use to occasionally convert people.
Well, I mean, consider this: it is relatively close to freezing out, but there's a river you need to cross. You cast that spell, and you create an ice bridge over the river.
And then you use your divine knowledge given to you by the dude to ice skate over it.
Yes, yes, you do. Now you're thinking with portals. He also can summon ice demons and things like that. He's not just a complete meme. Just mostly a meme.
No. Here's the best part of all. If you play the divine clown, it allows you to be a problem player, but because of your role as the divine clown, you're also within rights to be rebuked or punished as the divine clown. So if you get that guy, you can rebuke the divine clown as Eurmal's penance. And it
Well, that's the thing
still
about
allows them to be disastrous trash fires that do things like eat the king's mattress.
Yeah, that's the fun bit about that. There's a way to counteract that. It's that everyone else gets punished for this guy's shit, so you better keep him in line.
Yeah, it's great.
Any comments on this imp before we wrap up?
No, not really. Just again, very good book. I would say a very good introduction into the understanding of the various pantheons of Glorantha, because if you get into like lunars or solars, it's a very different kind of cosmology.
It's a completely different kettle of fish. And before I head off, Squirrel Killer also mentions that Pathfinder does the similar concept with Banes, which I'm not surprised. It's a good concept. So yeah, this was the Lightbringers book. I know at some point we're going to cover the Lunars at some point. Not next week, I can tell you that much.
The Lunars are unique in that we're going to have the first cult we're going to cover, which is the Seven Mothers, has a nice flashback to everything we talked about here at the start.
Which is very useful.
Because you see, seven questers went down into the underworld seeking a god, and they brought one back.
Hmm.
And it's repeated again. And one of them actually is represented by one that dies.
Two of them died, technically.
But for next week, I don't know. Maybe something Star Wars.
I mean, I got a variety of interesting slop. Let me take a look.
Have we done the jihad about Barney yet?
The jihad to kill Barney? No, we have not.
There's some interesting slop.
Yeah, we got slop. We also have actually good things. It depends. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
I could always inflict Iron Claw on everyone.
God no. Also, praise Orlanth.
And hail Harshax.
Rampages in Storm Bull, autistically screaming.
Autistic Storm Bull screeching.
Night, y'all.
Night.